live with the Dan Povenmire Interview. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Phineas Flynn's Law. Thank you so much for joining me today. And we have, well, I don't even really need to introduce him. This is Dan Povenmire, the co-creator of Phineas and Ferb and Milo Murphy's Law, voice of Doofenshmirtz, voice of Dakota, writer of the Campfire song, and, you know, acclaimed Simpsons artist. You know, you've all seen his episodes, I'm sure. And most recently, TikToker is his new profession. He's given up animation and decided to become full-time on TikTok with the Creator Fund. It's a big choice, but how's your day been progressing?
It's been progressing pretty good up to this point. I'm doing about as well as you can do in 2020 because I work in animation. And we can still produce stuff in animation even when nobody's in the same room as anybody.
Exactly.
So it's been good. It's been good.
Yeah, lockdown still in California and Florida. It's a little bit looser for me.
Yeah.
But that's good that you're still getting work and getting stuff done.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll admit I'm a pretty big fan, and most of the people on the channel have at least some knowledge of, you know, Milo Murphy's Law. So we're all pretty big fans too. Like, we kind of know about the universe and whatnot. So I even own the only Milo Murphy's Law song ever released on CD, which just happens to be Mr. Go. This is the Keep Left CD.
That is a different recording of it, actually.
Oh, it is? You re-recorded it for Milo.
We re-recorded it for Milo, and then Danny played the lead. So you'll notice the solo is very different.
That's so cool. But so I've picked a couple questions for today that you probably haven't been asked, because you know, there's so many questions. Is Doof Phineas's dad? Is Roger Phineas's dad? How does Phineas put on his t-shirt? You know, is the original Phineas drawn on a napkin or butcher paper? And, like, is the series based on a dead girl's diary? What is Ferb short for? We don't want any of those questions. Those are not what today's interview is about.
Okay, good. I've answered almost all of those on TikTok anyway.
Exactly. So,
although I've never heard is Roger Phineas's dad. I was like, I've never actually heard that. Of course, I'd never heard the Pinhead Pierre theory either.
Oh, that one's been around for like a while in the fandom theories. But yeah, and we've all heard that story about that one animation job you took that was way too hard for way too little money, and you had to go crash on your friend's couch, and you missed the exit while you were driving there. You know, so like these are all things that you know we know. Yeah. So let's open with something really simple. What would you say are your top 10 Milo Murphy's Law songs?
Ooh, I'd have to look at a list of them. I really like, I got a big foam finger. I like Mr. Go. I like Catastrophe a lot.
Yes, that one's one of my favorites.
I like the Sphere and Loathing in Outer Space is a lot of fun. Maybe my favorite from that may be taking a stroll in the moonlight, taking a stroll. Yeah, I like that one a lot.
I like the I chase you and you chase me, we just go round and round and round.
I like that one a lot. There's one I did for the one where I think it's Milo's birthday, where it just sounds like an old sort of doo-wop song that's all about everything being connected, and I can't remember the name of it, but I like that one a lot.
That might not have made it. Do you like How Do I Do It? You can analyze probability.
Yes, yeah, but that was just basically how closely can I rip off Bruno Mars? It's like if I'm doing something that's like based on another song, I don't. It doesn't stick with me as much because it's sort of like, well, I'm really sort of that's sort of cheating.
Is that how you felt about? Like, oh, there was another one that was like really close. The We Can Do What We Want, I think, from.
Oh yes, which is, yeah, very similar to some '80s songs.
And then,
you know, a song I really love is "This Is Really Happening" from the Christmas special.
That one, I don't think a full version made it in. I think it's pretty short in that one. Did you write a full version?
That's as long as that song is. Actually, that's as much as I wrote. But I did this demo for it that was really eerie and creepy, because I was just finding harmonies that sounded really painful, you know, like sort of dissonant.
Yeah.
And I sent it to Danny, and he sent one back that sounded like this really cool jazz thing with these really cool jazz chords.
Harmonies,
and I was like,
yeah.
No, Danny, this is pretty now. It doesn't, you know, like I want you to do the actual bad harmony. He's like, really? Because they don't make sense musically. I said, yeah, I know. That's what's good about them. And he went back in and made it a little more dissonant. Still not quite as dissonant as the original, but
people are saying they're giving other songs just roll with it. You gotta know to let it go and just roll with it.
I like that. Out of I love Chop Chop Chop. I think that's a great song. But I had very little to do with that. I literally just rewrote the lyrics to a song a friend of mine had written. You know,
do they know how like you rewrote it and like it's on the soundtrack and everything?
Oh yeah, no, she knows. I called her up and said, hey, you know that really stupid boy band song that you wrote for a class in college where he was like trying to write for a specific thing. She was like, I'm going to write a One Direction song.
Yeah,
and I. It's actually a friend of mine's daughter who's also a friend of mine, but she was in college when she wrote that. And I was like, you know that song? And she goes, yeah. I said, are you ever going to do anything with that? She's like, no. Can I rewrite can I use it in this show? Because we need a boy band song, but I need to rewrite the lyrics to make them dumber. And she was like, you can write dumber lyrics than that? Because she specifically wrote dumb lyrics for it. And I was like, yeah, but it's going to be about lumberjacks.
Do you know any of the original lyrics? I think you said before it's like jump, jump,
like,
jump.
Jump, 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 and I can't keep away. It was like, it wasn't any smarter actually than the lyrics that are in there, which is funny because she's a fantastic lyricist. She also co-wrote the song from Act Your Age, What
Might Have Been.
What Might Have Been. She co-wrote that with us.
And then some other people are saying
those are her chords, and my favorite gag she put in was I could have held your hair back when you were sick with salmonella.
We are like, how are they going to find a rhyme for Finabella? Like, what word do you put?
Yes, exactly. Salmonella. That's what I like.
Exactly. Other people are saying the Tip the Domino song from Cast Party.
That's the one. Cast Party. That's the song that I was talking about. Yeah. It's like so that's not Milo's birthday. That's
Cast Party season 2.
It's Cast Party. Yeah. I knew there was a party of some sort at the end of it.
That's the way it goes when you tip the domino.
Yeah, that was fun.
I think Aaron and Danny sang that one together. That was really cool.
Yeah, the fun thing about Milo, because on all the 350, 400 songs in Phineas and Ferb, there's one song that I wrote all by myself. And that's talk to him and tell him everything that's in your evil mind. That song.
Got to talk.
Yes, yeah, exactly. And that was just because Swampy and Martin weren't around, and I needed that song done, and so I just went ahead and wrote it. Usually I'll write a lot of a song at home and then take it in and finish it with the guys or something like that. So it was always a very collaborative process. When it got to Milo, Swampy and Martin were both very busy on outside things. Yeah. And so out of the probably 50 or 60 songs we wrote for Milo, I wrote probably more than half of them just in this room I'm sitting in right now by myself.
Oh, another great one, No Day Like a Snow Day. I think Martin wrote that one with you guys.
That song we wrote with Fred Stoller of Lieber and I think it's Lieber and Stoller. He was part of a songwriting duo that did a lot of the big hits in the 50s and 60s.
Did you actually get to write Pressure with Jermaine Clement, or no? Did you just have him sing that one?
I just had him sing that.
Okay.
It's like people who are current, like as much fun as it would have been to write something with Weird Al, for instance. Weird Al's bread and butter is writing parody songs. And so his management says he can't write with you for less than this amount of money because we can't dilute that. And they never had that amount of money to spend. So we would write stuff for Weird Al to sing. My favorite thing is that we wanted to do a Love Boat type song. And I was like, oh, wait, we wrote a Love Boat song for, like, Martin and I wrote The Ship of Romance for Phineas and Ferb. So I just got that music and wrote new lyrics to it as though I was writing a Weird Al version of something, where,
oh man, when that came out.
I'm going to change the lyrics. It'll be my Weird Al version of this. And then I was like, and just coincidentally, I have Weird Al available. I can have Weird Al sing this song that I wrote, which is the Weird Al version of one of my own songs from another show. So
Yeah, that was so much fun to see that. It's like toboggans.
Yes.
Not where you typically look for romance.
Yeah, very fun. Very
Yeah.
fun.
All right. So this is a little bit about Milo's kind of inception. It was greenlit. Basically, the story goes, you had a job offer at DreamWorks, and you're like, I'm out of here Monday if it's not greenlit.
It was not DreamWorks. It was Warner Brothers.
Oh, it was Warner Brothers. Okay.
It was Warner Brothers, and because my contract went through April 1st, and then like April 2nd, I didn't know if I was going to be working. So I set up work that would start on April 2nd if I wasn't working at Disney.
Right.
And they were really hot on me directing a feature for them, and I thought that would have been a lot of fun. It was what ended up being the Scoob movie.
Oh, I see.
And they were excited about that, but they had a backup plan because I said, well, I can't do it if they pick up my new pilot.
Right.
But if they don't pick up my new pilot by April 2nd, I will come and work on this movie. And so they had a backup plan, and they hired a co-director to do it with me, and he would just take over. That's Tony Cervoni who had been doing it. And then they, everything moves at a glacial pace at a big company like Disney, and they didn't test it till very late, thinking, and the head of the studio called and said, okay, so the testing really seemed to go really well, but we haven't collated all the data and stuff. If you can give us like a couple weeks before we do that, we'll just pay you month to month or week to week. To that point, and I was like, well, I can't really, because I didn't know whether I was going to be working on April 2nd. So I set up work to start April 2nd. And he was like, oh, really? It's like, yeah, I mean, I've got a feature that I can do over there. And I can't just tell, like they've been waiting.
I could go back to Family Guy and get some more money. It's okay if you don't want to.
Exactly, and he like went away for let me talk to some people, and just called back and said, okay, you're greenlit. It was
I'm curious.
It wasn't done as a it wasn't a negotiation tactic. It was just literally, I don't like to not be working. That always makes me nervous.
Yeah.
So
especially in an industry as
as volatile.
Is...
Yeah, exactly. So I just sort of pushed the issue by saying, no, if you had asked me 6 months ago if I could, if you can extend this time, I would have been able to do it. But when I see a big empty space coming in my life, I'm going to fill it. So
I'm curious, did Disney ever question, given how big Cavendish and Dakota become the show, did they ever question that aspect of it, given that it's not really in the pilot or in the initial concept? Was that a harder sell for them?
It wasn't in the pilot. When we started getting into a writer's room, they were like, what we need, because the pilot is all just following Milo all the way through. And sometimes that's harder to write because like how do you get from one thing to the other without showing it happen there? Whereas if you have another story you can cut away to and then cut back to them later, you can get through time quicker. And I think it was Danny Viteri it was either Danny Viteri or Josh who pitched the idea of these time travelers, and or maybe both of them. Maybe they both got together, and I was like, okay, that's great, but what we have to do is we have to figure out that they're here. It's got to be somehow connected to Milo, and that's how we came up with the whole Pistachio thing.
It's so insane.
A friend of mine's son is allergic specifically, not to nuts, but specifically to pistachios. He has like a deathly allergic reaction to pistachios. So I was like, what if what they're doing is trying to stop, without them knowing it, stop something that Milo is causing to happen, and with the cyclone of calamity that's around him. And what if, when they finally figure out how to stop that and they fix the thing that's happening in the future, it ruins the future. Like so everything going wrong now is actually saving the future. And
Right.
and that's how we came up with that.
It's a really cool connection, yeah.
Yeah, and once I pitched that as the whole idea to the executives, they were fine with it. The fun thing that we did there, that if the show had been on Disney Channel and gotten the same kind of push that Phineas and Ferb did, for instance, as far as like promotion and stuff like that.
Yeah.
If it hadn't been on Disney XD that was getting, a tenth of the audience and
one air a day.
Yeah, there were a lot of things that were wrong with that. But if it had been a show that people were really watching, it would have been a really cool thing. As it is, most people didn't even notice it because what we did is when we first aired all the episodes, there's like 3 or 4 episodes that happen before Cavendish and Dakota show up. And when we first aired them, they weren't in those episodes at all. Then when they re-aired after that, we put Cavendish and Dakota into the backgrounds of scenes. And a few people mentioned it on Twitter and Instagram. It was like, hey, what is up with this?
It was such a creative little thing, and it really built the hype for the show. Like, I didn't get into it until later on, but from what like the people I've talked and everything, that was like a super huge deal because there was a lot of mystery. Like Dan Swarthy said, this is gonna have a story arc, and there's weird stuff happening. And this, was coming right on the heels of Gravity Falls just ending like earlier in 2016.
Yeah.
So there were, I feel like a lot of people jumped bandwagon to kind of that hype train. But yeah, so there's lots of MML Milo Murphy's Law lore questions. One of them is about Lance and Lisa. Why were they cut from the Murphy's Lard episode and the show as a whole? Was there ever a specific reason?
Who are Lance and Lisa? You're gonna have to refresh me on this.
Zach's younger siblings.
Oh, I didn't know that we had ever given them names. I did not remember that at all. Lance and Lisa's. I thought he had 2 brothers.
Oh,
doesn't he say something like "My brothers can eat with their feet"?
He does, yeah. I'm referring to. I think Ash made a post about them at some point when she was working on it after.
I think that may have been something that Ashley did as a fan art thing.
Okay.
I don't think that was actually in the show. I think that Ashley, we got Ashley because she was a fantastic fan artist.
Yeah.
She gave me some fan art at a comics convention, and it was them as teenagers, and that's how we hired her to do the designs for Act Your Age.
Right.
Which is not really how to get a job in animation. That's happened probably once in the history of animation where somebody has given a creator a piece of art and then gotten hired by that person.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think that in the actual show we just mentioned them once. And they were never cut out. We just never got around to telling a story with them in it.
Gotcha.
It's sort of like Stacy now knows that Perry is a secret agent, and we just never got around to telling a story where that was relevant.
Yeah.
But if we did like a 5th season, we would definitely
explore and go back. Yeah, that was one of those things people are always like, why did. Because Disney marketing made a huge deal out of Happy Birthday Isabella. Like they hyped that up to the roof. When it came out, it was like, who's gonna discover Perry's secret life? And then
yes, and then we never did anything. It was shortly after that we realized that Disney was sort of cooling off on the show, and it was a point where we had a year and a half of the show in the can because they just kept ordering new ones so that they could keep the whole team together.
Right, and that's you did the specials and all that stuff.
Yeah, and they said, we're gonna, we feel like we're at the plateau of the merchandise, and so we want to, and we have a year and a half left here. Let's wait until these all air before we decide whether we want a 5th season. And Swampy and I were like, well, we're not interested in that because we don't want to have to restaff this show. It's a very difficult show to do with people who don't know how to do this show yet.
Yeah.
It's like we didn't feel like starting all over. If we're going to start all over, let's do a new show.
Exactly. Can you move on? Time to try something new,
and we said,
as the song
and
goes.
we said, we will be able to, like you've given us 5-hour-long specials to do right now. Let us make the last one the last day of summer, and let us end the show and do an actual finale, which you never get to do in animation. And they were like, really? And I was like, yeah, we've been doing this for 10 years. We're good to move on.
Just don't kill anybody, right?
Yeah, that's what they said. Don't kill anybody off or make anybody move away so that we can't do anything else with it later. And to me, it was a big privilege to be able to say goodbye to the fans that way.
Yeah. So
cool.
Another Milo. Do we know the full names of Zach and Melissa? Do they have middle names?
Zach Underwood. I don't think they have middle names because it never came up. A lot of these things, people say, what's the answer to this? It's like, well, I haven't thought of that yet. If we ever had Melissa Chase and Zach Underwood, we never had middle names for them. But,
and then there's an episode where
Melissa's is probably Carolina. Just it's like a lot of those are like, well, I would have said Carolina because that's what my Melissa's middle name is.
That makes sense. Yeah.
It's like we could do that. It would it would be Carolina.
Swampy has said on Twitter that Balthazar Cavendish's middle name is Tiberius. Can you confirm or deny this?
That was at least said in a writer's room. I don't think it was ever put in the show, but yes.
All right.
It's a reference to James Kirk.
Alrighty. So there's a lot of alien stories in both Milo Murphy's Law and Phineas and Ferb. So
yes.
How did you guys land on that obsession, and how did you ensure in the writer's room for Candace Against the Universe that the story felt different enough from the story you just told in Milo Murphy's Law?
Well, I don't know. It's fun. It's fun to do aliens because then you can make them whatever you want. It also makes the show more than global. You're playing in a bigger sandbox and able to sort of create other worlds and stuff. And it's just a weird, funny thing that, when you see an alien, suddenly it reminds you that you're watching a cartoon, I think.
Right, it pulls you into the world in that way.
Yeah, so, but, it's like aliens are not the weirdest thing that's happened in Phineas and Ferb by any stretch of the imagination. So it's like we've got a giant floating baby head, we've got a zebra that calls Candace Kevin, we've got, there's a lot of weird things, Baljeet's life coach. It was just, there was a lot of weird stuff that we did in there. But I, part of it is just something gets pitched in the room is like, oh, that sounds funny.
Okay, so this is, there's a lot of questions about the crossover, but did you guys remember the Just Our Luck episode of Phineas and Ferb, where Phineas and Ferb deal with bad luck for the entire day, when you were writing the crossover?
We weren't referencing that when we were writing the crossover, and we sort of ignored that it happened when we were writing the crossover, because it was like, we don't want to have to go into all the lore of Phineas and Ferb to explain why, well, we've never had bad luck except for that one day in episode,
and that takes up screen time that you would otherwise use for stuff.
That was one day they sort of forgot about it. So
they didn't have to deal with bad luck for.
Yes, exactly.
I think it's fun because Doofus and Nader in that episode, he talks about how everything has a positive and negative energy, and so the lore does kind of check out in that sense. That, everything has positive or negative probability ions, so that's kind of neat.
Yeah. And that was just accidental. I don't think I went back and watched that episode. A lot of things is like, yeah, that worked out really well. Like, I often say that like all of the mushroom plants on Feeblaoot, I remember thinking, do fungus perform photosynthesis? And I went and looked it up and they didn't. And I was like, oh, that's why there's no carbon dioxide on that planet. I looked so smart.
Was there a reason in the writer's room you settled on mushrooms in the first place?
No, just to make it look different than when we're doing the feature, we had all these designers on staff, and I would just send them off with, like, okay, just give me a bunch of different takes on an alien planet. Give me a bunch of different takes on the spaceship. The big sort of manta ray spaceship that they had.
Yeah.
I think pissed off some of the designers because I had drawn a basic shape that I thought it should be. And I said, here, do something along this shape so it looks like a big hull, and sort of big rounded on the bottom of this. And so all the designers, except for one, brought me really cool versions of that, right? And then Russell Chong, who had worked at for Lucasfilm for a good chunk of his thing, came up with this completely different shape for a ship, and he did like a 3D rendering of it and stuff like that. And I was like, oh, that's good, that's good. Oh, what is this? And I could just tell that all the other designers were turning at him and saying, I'm like, what? He told us specifically what he wanted, and you went and did something else, and he likes your thing better. So,
it happens. Sometimes the best one is the one you don't expect.
Exactly.
All right. So when Vanessa appeared on Milo Murphy's Law, we all noticed that as part of the one design change is her skin tone changed, and we all thought it's a one-off mistake, right? But then her change in skin tone carried over to all of Candace Against the Universe. So can you explain that decision?
I'm not sure that's true.
It's
as far as the actual Pantone number we had, it may have something to do with how digital everything had become.
Okay.
You know what I mean? I think by the time we got to Milo, everything was digital, so you may be seeing the actual true thing instead of stuff being...
The main thing was that it's comparison to Doof, because her and Doof's tones are very similar, and Milo,
I had not noticed that at all. So I don't know how or why that happened. It may have been a mistake somebody made in one model that we pulled and thought that was the right model or something like that. I literally didn't notice it at all.
Alrighty, interesting. Yeah, that was just one thing we had talked a lot about on Twitter, because we were just surprised, because it was like...
It was certainly not purposeful, I can tell you that.
All right.
There was no decision made to do that. It was just like somebody may have... it's possible that somebody pulled a night palette or an afternoon palette
when it should have been a daytime.
Yeah, when we were going back and finding old models, somebody might have pulled something that had been mislabeled day palette and it was actually afternoon palette, or something like that. But it was not a purposeful thing in any way.
Gotcha. So let's see. Timeline. We've all wondered the placement of Doof's story in Milo Murphy's Law, Alka Files, and Doof 101. Are they separate timelines? Is there a consistent timeline? What is the writer's room? Where do they take place?
Originally Doof 101 was supposed to be sort of a planted pilot for another show, and it was one of the most heartbreaking things to see. I'll tell you, as far as it goes, he goes good. He works. He works. I think that he works as a substitute teacher for a couple weeks before he goes to Alka. Is what I always think of it as. I'm going to go good. I'm going to, I know how to teach science. I can be a science teacher. And then it doesn't work really well, and he gets fired, and he ends up at Alka. That's.
And then he just is that why in the crossover Perry shows up and Alka gives him a call, is because he's still on their roll call?
Yeah. He's we never really. I think that it doesn't really work out at Alka either.
Yeah.
And he's just hanging out by the time the Milo Murphy crossover happens. He's just sort of hanging out and figuring out what his next move is going to be. Right. He might try evil again for a little bit. Like there's 20 years before he becomes Professor Time. A lot can happen.
He's got to go back for. Oh yeah, people have always wondered: is the Christmas special is that like a relapse? Because now in the timeline,
that's what I always say is that he worked for Alka for a while. It didn't work out. He tried evil again. Don't know how long he did that, and eventually he ends up as Professor Time. But I think it's that first summer, he goes good at the end of it, becomes a science teacher for a couple weeks, maybe a month, gets fired for some horrible thing that happens there, goes and works at Alka. That doesn't work out. He becomes evil again by Christmas. And maybe that next summer, so if we ever want to do another, like Phineas and Ferb, the next summer, then he gives that up again and decides to create time travel and stuff. So
that is a complicated profession. That
yes, he's had a lot of second acts in his life.
Yeah, so this is another thing. Did you guys have a plan for where to take Doof's story arc in Milo season 3? Because it didn't really conclude at the end of season 2. It's still just kind of there. Was there ever a thought out, this is where we're going to take the Professor Time arc in the show?
No, because we didn't. There was originally an ending to that episode that was really hinting at a big story for that used weird dimensions and different size stuff and different versions of people.
Ooh. I think Josh teased that on Twitter, that like there was a much bigger thing at the end of Sphere and
there was, and it was fun and funny, and we hadn't quite figured out what was going to happen with it, but we knew the general area we were going to go into. We hadn't figured out character arcs or anything like that from it. But that was when we realized that this may be the last episode ever.
Right.
Disney was not really re-upping it anytime soon. Then we sort of, let's not end in such a way
this cliffhanger and
let's not end on a cliffhanger. Let's just sort of, do a fun ending for it, and then it'll be like a little 2 seasons that people can watch forever if they want.
Yeah, and I know you guys had to cut Baby Cavern Puss as well, which was very disappointing. Can you tell us what that joke was? Because that made it to color, right? You should still have that scene somewhere.
I don't.
You don't?
I don't remember what the joke was exactly.
Because you shared it on Twitter, and we were all like, "Baby Cavern Puss," what? And it was like, we were like, "It made it to color. We should." I
think that we didn't. The thing is, I think we cut the gag earlier. I think we cut the gag in script or in animatic. It must have been in animatic because he was drawn into that scene. I may be wrong.
It looked like the still you shared. It wasn't black and white. It was like full color. Like you can match the.
No, he was drawn into that scene, but I can't be absolutely sure on this. But what I think happened is that we cut it because we were not. That we had already cut the rest of the gag, but he had stayed in storyboard somehow, like nobody had seen to erase him, and so overseas just put him in there, and and the timer wasn't paying attention to that he was only in this one scene. I think that's what happened, but I may be wrong. That he may have made it to color I would have to check. I would have to check with my editor and look back at the animatic on that and see if he was in there. But it was just weirdly disturbing, and it was, Cavern Puss himself was so disturbing. It was weird to have him then reproduce.
Well, Josh kind of talked about how they you guys kind of played around with so many ideas for where to take the season finale. Like he talked about, at one point there was an idea to have Phineas and Ferb help rebuild the spaceship, and then send the Milo characters off, and then there was the whole Cavendish Farms story that he pitched with Dakota cloning Cavendish hundreds of times to try and get inside his head. That, you guys decided that didn't really work for his character, and then nobody has been able to say who's decided on Cavern Puss. Do we know who in the writers' room said?
It was originally. I don't know who it was originally, but I thought it was hilarious. So it seems like it was probably either Josh or Martin. Those are those weird, those really weird episodes come from. It's usually from one of their brains.
That makes sense. Oh yeah, a lot of people have been asking. Can you tell us what Milo's cameo was going to be in Candace Against the Universe before it was cut?
He was going to be in the ballpark at the end, and when everything starts going really wrong, we were going to cut to him and say, "I don't think this is me." you know, like, or like, you know, like maybe Zach was going to turn to him or something like that. She's like, I don't think this is me. But we didn't want, if you didn't watch Milo Murphy, then it was just a confusing moment. And B, which wouldn't bother me that much, but B, we didn't want it to look like it might be him.
Right.
Didn't want it to look like this was caused by him. We wanted it to be our characters. And so we had Weird Al, and he actually read that line, and then we cut it even, I think, before animatic. And then he called me at one point to say, I know you guys cut the Milo bit from there. Is my voice still in there? Because I'll remove it from my online resume if it's like, and I was like, I don't know. I'm gonna have to call my editor. And she was like, no, the T-shirt guy is Weird Al. I was like, oh no, your T-shirt guy made it. And he was like, okay, good.
Oh man, that's so much fun. I wish he would have been able to make it in. That would have been a fun time.
It would have been I feel like if Milo had been anywhere near the size hit that I feel like it deserved to be, you know, it didn't have to be as big as Phineas, but I felt like it should have gotten a much bigger audience if they had just put a little effort into getting
like,
it.
Let's air it more than one time at 7 a.m. on Disney Channel. Jesus.
It was like, it was so frustrating. It was really frustrating. But if it had done better than that at all, I would have absolutely left Milo in there. But I felt like, you know, it's like when people find out that I created Phineas and Ferb, they all know. Like if they have a child in their life or anybody under the age of 27 in their life, they know the show. Or if they're you know, adults who had children or grandchildren in that group, they know that show, or they've at least heard of that show. And I would ask 9-year-old kids during the heyday of Milo Murphy's Law. You know, they'd find out I did Milo Murphy's Law, and they'd go,
"Wait, what?
What is that?"
What? Yeah.
It's like, that's, you know, it's like...
And it's so weird, because every time it would air, like, I remember there was an episode of Milo that aired the same day as the Star versus series finale, like, last episode of Star, airing, like, 30 minutes apart, and Milo got better numbers than Star. And Disney
it did okay. I mean, it did good for that network, for XD, but XD was sort of weirdly dying this death. You know.
Yeah, and now DuckTales is back on it.
We want this to succeed, but we're not going to give it any money or any publicity. It was that sort of thing.
Yeah. All right. So this is one a lot of people have been asking. Another timeline. Do the kids remember meeting Doof in Night of the Living Pharmacists? And since Buford doesn't seem to remember meeting Doof in Candace Against the Universe, does the Bully Bromance breakup take place after the movie?
The kids do not remember meeting. Like what we did is that transforming into Doofenshmirtz erases some of your memory going back. So they don't remember meeting Doofenshmirtz. What was the other question?
The Bully Bromance breakup where Buford and Doof team up. Does that?
Yeah, Buford remembers that guy, but when you're 9, do you remember the adults that you've spent any time with?
This is true.
You don't think of them at all. You know, like Candace had met Doofenshmirtz at the end of the season. I think she may have even met him before she sold him some cookies or some cupcakes.
Yeah, that's true.
But kids just don't remember or even really, you know, really look at adults
the same way. Exactly.
You know, that's how I would always know during Phineas, or a lot of times I know when someone recognizes me, and I haven't been really out of the house since TikTok took off for me. Now it may be weirder for me out there after this, but I would be somewhere and there'd be a bunch of young teens or tweens or something, and they would all be looking at me, and I would go, "Oh, that's weird," because when you're over 35, children of a certain age just don't even look at you. They don't make eye contact.
Exactly. You're like not in the same.
you're not even in the same
radar.
species as them, you know.
Yeah.
And I would look, and then I went over here, and these teenagers were all looking at me again. And then one of them came over to me after a while and said, "Are you the guy who created Phineas?" Like they recognized me from some behind the scenes thing that they had seen. I was like, "Oh, that's why they were looking at me. They were trying, you know, it's this weird." And I talked to Ming Na about that, who's a friend of mine from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and so she's an actress, and she said, "Oh, you'll get used to that. That's the glassy-eyed stare." And I was like, "Is this what your life has been like ever since Joy Luck Club?" And she said, "Everywhere I go." I was like,
it's the burden of
that's
fame.
it's a little disturbing, I think. And she's like, "You just get used to it. You just get used to it."
It's like a combination of fear and respect that just gets inside your head, and you're just like, do I say hello? Do I not? Am I inconveniencing their personal life?
It's them trying to make sure that you're the person they think you are, and B, figure out what they're going to do about it. Should they talk to you? Should they not talk to you? Should they, like, what if I ask him if he's that guy and he's not that guy?
And then it's like, no. Yeah.
It's very funny.
Some people are saying, have you seen the Renew MML thing that went trending on Twitter, and what do you think of that? What do you think the chances are for season 3?
I think that's great. The thing is, I was on Family Guy and we got canceled for years. We were dead for years, and then it found new life somewhere else, and suddenly Seth called and said, "Let's get the band back together." I would love to do that. I and I think Swampy would both really love to do more Milo Murphy. I think it's a show that didn't get its due. It is now on Disney Plus. I think the fact that Phineas has taken off so well and people are starting to find it, I think it's doing better all the time on Disney Plus.
It's been on the front page a couple times, and I've seen a bunch of people post it with like it on the top banner as like the 7th or 8th thing, and
so it may be that they're starting to find it. If it starts taking off on Disney Plus and people start talking about it, like the trending thing made me really happy. It's like, oh, maybe that's the kind of thing that could actually get people to watch it, and getting people to watch it is the kind of thing that could actually get them to say, "Oh, we've still got Dan in house. We got
the development packet right here. They've already pitched us season 3. We don't have to come up with new characters. We can tie it to Phineas and Ferb. Like
we can still get a lot of those people back and do a good show." Yeah. I've told them I'm willing to do more than one show at a time. That's it's like I've got a lot of bandwidth.
Yeah.
But we'll see. Knock on wood. I'd love for that to happen.
And Disney didn't give it the boot like Wander Over Yonder. They left it ambiguous, so all for the better.
Yeah. How did Wander Over Yonder end with a very specific thing, or did they just say we've canceled it?
Wander left with the implication that they were going to introduce humans, I feel like, in the 3rd season, but the story arc for that season was done. Like it was very similar to Milo in that sense, where like they finished the season's arc, but they left it open-ended for the future.
Okay, good. I didn't get to watch all of that show, but every episode of that show I saw was freaking brilliant. I think that
it really was.
Just holy moly, he's a very, very brilliant guy. He did. I forget what the episode. I was looking up just to watch an episode for something else, and it was I can't even remember what the main gist of it was. Something about a hero and a princess, and the hero's trying to save the princess from the evil monster, but it's just some guy who looks like an evil monster, and he's actually her boyfriend, and we find out that the hero is a jerk. Something to that effect. And then there was one that was all split screen. It was the villain and Wander all going about their day in split screen and sort of seeing and I was just like, man, that had to have been a lot of work, and it just worked like nuts. It was so good.
And the songs that they included in the show are really good too. Weird Al got his song "Let the Pun Fit the Crime," which is a really
excellent.
fun number. Excellent. And somebody I saw somebody ask about Step Into the Great Unknown. People are asking, why was it a Phineas and Isabella duet? Why was it not most of the kids singing for the whole time? Was there?
Well, I mean, the other kids all have step out lines.
Right.
I think partially because we know that Phineas and Isabella can both sing. Yeah.
That's true.
Oh, look at this! You brought me tequeños.
Hannah is stranded. I'm gonna go pick her up and take her home.
Okay, please do. Okay. You're gonna come in here because I have food? Is that what you're gonna come in here for?
Tofu's gonna be like, I'm gonna take some of those.
My dog's like, well, I'm going where the food is.
That's
sorry. I'm gonna eat in front of you guys because you have to eat Venezuelan treats while they're hot.
Yes, you do. So people are asking, there's a line in Step Into the Ground. It's like there could be sentient vegetation that would spew out noxious gases. Was before you cut that song, did you think, all right, we're gonna throw like an image of like pistachions in there?
No,
for
it wasn't pistachions, but I did feel like, okay, well, we've done sentient vegetation, so my favorite line in that is, maybe there's a shark with the wings of an eagle and the pancreas of a lizard. That's the thing that makes me the most sad we had to cut that song.
And I think that part, like the shark with the wings, still made it in a visual way.
Yes, yeah.
So, so one of the big things in Milo Murphy Season 2 is the PIG, the Paranormal Investigation Group. And according to the Milo lore, all abductions have to be authorized by Bob Block. So does this mean that Bob Block authorized Candace's abduction?
I've never thought of that through. I suppose although Candace's abduction was not on purpose. It's not an alien abduction as much as it is. They were actually sending down a
pod to get carbon dioxide for the plant.
That's what they're sucking in.
I just made that connection.
They're sucking in
literally
air.
Just now. Wow.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. They were not trying to get a person. That's
why the other pods were empty. Wow.
Yeah.
I literally just put that together. That is clever.
Mm-hmm.
That is very, very smart. Yeah, and I think Josh had mentioned that some people in the writer's room had canon that Bob Block was actually an alien at some point, and then it just never made it to screen.
Yeah, I don't know how. I don't think I signed off on that. That was just them pitching stuff.
Okay.
Man, no, probably not.
Yeah.
There's a lot of that stuff that goes on.
There was a fun, Josh said, like, there was at one point an episode where, like, of Milo where every Phineas and Ferb character was going to appear, but none of them were going to say anything. It was just all going to be in the background. It's like just an entire Milo Murphy's Law episode plays out just with all Phineas. Was there a reason why that one didn't make it?
We just didn't get around to it. It was, we were going to, it would have been great in like a chase where people were running or not doing something super fast.
Right.
Because you could just run by people.
Oh, if you did if you redid like the whole going to school for season 3 again, like as the first episode.
Yes, exactly. It could have been there.
It's just like, all right, we're passing through Danville and all these Phineas and Ferb, like Perry and Doof having a fight or.
Yeah, it's like we thought about it. I think in the trade. What am I thinking? It's the fire engine one.
Oh yeah,
like that. But everything was moving so fast, it just wouldn't have looked like anything. It just most of those backgrounds are blurred. They're moving so fast.
Right. So people have also asked, why does Melissa never sing on Milo Murphy's Law? You get Sabrina Carpenter, this professional singer, and Melissa never gets to sing.
It just never came up story-wise. We often didn't write stuff specifically because we wanted a specific voice to sing it. Also, it was because she had a record deal, it becomes more... there's more red tape. If we had really wanted her to sing something, we could have gotten her to sing something, but
it just wasn't worth the amount of work.
A lot of times it's this is going to be a headache because we have to get these people to sign off on this and this.
It's just like it's more trouble than it's worth, especially given that Milo Murphy's Law characters singing on screen isn't a integral part of the show as much as it was for Phineas and Ferb.
Yeah.
So there's a line in Sphere Loathing in Outer Space that says, one of the aliens tells Milo, and you'll develop telepathy. And he's like, oh, I knew you were going to say that. Was that just a throwaway gag, or was that actually something you guys were thinking to explore?
That's just a throwaway gag. That's just like something that Rob said in the editing room, and I thought was funny, I think.
Throw it in. That makes sense.
Yeah.
All right, so there's this really cool fan theory that Charlene was actually the one who sung for Lindana, since Olivia Olson voices Lindana's singing voice. Maybe Charlene's voice once sounded like that, and that's why Linda and Charlene are friends and go to like the cooking class and everything, is because there's the one in Max Modem, she says, oh, I was lip syncing, even back then. So to think that Charlene was the talent the whole time. I just wanted to share that.
I don't know how they came up with that, but sure. No, that is not at all what I had in mind. I was thinking more of Milli Vanilli, where they just hired a good session singer, and then she was just lip syncing.
And the other evidence for that was the fact that we never see Charlene's career, and yet she has all this money on the house, so that it's like Linda pays her to keep quiet.
I always think of Charlene as coming from really old money, like having so much money that she doesn't know what to do with it.
I gotcha.
You know, my favorite thing about Charlene is that Doofenshmirtz was apparently not evil when they were together, because she doesn't believe Vanessa. I love the fact that you know, well, they've only been divorced at the most 15 years because Vanessa's like 16, right? Right. So, you know, and I love the fact that it's like, no, your father's not evil. We just wanted different things. I love that whole conversation.
And then they ended up breaking up because of Mr. Tomato.
Yes, exactly.
It was the final straw.
Yeah. Oh, yes, that's why.
And people say the line in Second Dimension refers to that, where he's like, if I had a nickel for every time I've been doomed by a puppet, I'd have 2 nickels. They say that the Mr. Tomato puppet was the first nickel. Is that the intention?
Sure. It was not intentional, but I like that theory. I think I'll support that theory.
Let's see. So this is another.
I like any theory that makes me look smarter than I really am.
In Rooting for the Enemy, big musical number, huge episode of Milo. He doesn't have his backpack the entire time he's at the game, and it's never explained. Was there a reason for this? Was this just we forgot?
No, it was just easier for him to dance without the backpack. I think we hadn't figured out whether he needed to always have that yet. I think that was an early on in season 1 episode. And,
so it was a story. It was like, does he need to have it all the time?
I'm sure there are other times where he doesn't have it. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe after that we just had it on him all the rest of the time.
I think unless he's sleeping, that's part of his character model.
All right.
But
yeah, we hadn't figured it out yet, I think.
So there's some fan questions.
And I didn't want to draw dance poses with the backpack.
I want to say Joe Scott did the Rooting for the Enemy.
I did most of those dance poses.
Oh no, you did most of Rooting for the Enemy? Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, we had Dave Kupchik do a little bit of it, but when it comes to actual choreography, I did most of it.
So one of the questions was, did Professor Time bring Doof back to the present from the Lots of Lakes episode? Or Lots of Latkes, my bad. And yeah, so he gets sent.
Why from that episode?
He tries to bring back Doofus Khan's army, and then he ends up getting stuck with them in the past when they get sent back.
Oh, and we never explain how he got forward again.
Yeah.
I just always assumed he had to build a time machine there to get back to like with the technology that they had there. It probably took him a long time, and then he made it back here. That's sort of what I think. And there's a couple episodes that end with him stuck in weird places, or there's an episode that ends with Phineas and Ferb melded together as one character. That we're just like, like we're not going to get him out of it. Like,
leave it the way it is.
No, we'll assume they somehow got out of it.
Exactly. Somebody also asked, was Django originally meant to be a part of Phineas and Ferb's main friend group, or was he always intended as a side character?
he was sort of a side character. So, he's just a full-on caricature of Swampy's son Django.
Yeah.
So he was just like, let's fill out the neighborhood a little bit.
Somebody asks, whose idea was it to do the remains of the platypus episode in the style of Memento, or that one Seinfeld episode that plays from back to front?
That might have been our art director, Jill Daniels may have pitched that. I think that's what she wrote an episode, and I think that was the episode. But I would have to check IMDb. I don't remember whose idea that was exactly, but that was a fun episode. I really liked it.
And then we have another one. What ever happened to the long-rumored Fireside Girls spinoff? And had it been greenlit, what types of stories would you have told with them?
Here's the thing. I loved the idea of a Fireside Girls spinoff. I had a great idea that I pitched, which was we do a Fireside Girls spinoff, and like every episode takes place during a Phineas and Ferb episode and connects the way those two episodes connect.
Oh, so it was literally like you would
we would just go and back engineer episodes in so that we'd either take place the day before or the day after, like the afternoon after this happened, or they would all connect back to a specific Phineas and Ferb episode.
That's crazy.
It was the feeling. Our immediate executive loved that idea as a spinoff. I think it was the higher ups that felt like they didn't want to do a show, because Phineas was the first show that they had on Disney Channel that boys came to as much as girls.
Right.
Before that, they had not been able to hit a boy audience at all, and Phineas tested very gender neutral, and boys liked it as much as girls, and they were very worried about losing the boys. I think that possibly if I pitched that show today, they're much more into, okay, this is our sweet spot, girls 6 to 11.
Right.
And they might actually, maybe I'll do that. Maybe I'll pitch that.
Go this weekend. Just throw the first.
Because I would love to do that series. I think that's a really fun idea for a series, and I loved the idea of attaching them all to specific episodes of Phineas and Ferb, so that would be the background for what they were doing.
Somebody asked, did Milo and his friends become Doof clones in Night of the Living Pharmacists?
I'm sure they did. I am sure they did. They lived somewhere in Danville. Everybody else got it. I'm sure they did too.
And then, this was another thing.
And all of Milo's friends were blaming him for it, I'm sure.
This is another thing I noticed, but in Candace Against the Universe, when they look up the alien license plate, they only see that it's Feeble Oot, and there's like no other information on the planet on the galactic web. And then when you get to Feeble Oot, you see that they're like an agrarian society, like they're farmers, so it makes sense they wouldn't have been on the galactic web for the most part, other than to be a part of the galactic regulations. Like you gotta have license plates on your vehicles. I thought that was a fun detail. I don't know if that was intentional.
That was not intentional. That was just, I didn't want to give much more information at that time.
Because otherwise you couldn't have the whole we don't know what it's gonna be like on there. Like
right, exactly.
It's like there's no pictures, nothing. It's just it's registered to Feeble.
Like the galactic web is not. They didn't have social media in the other planets yet.
Only Meep had Skype.
Yes, exactly.
Let's see. Were there any other plot lines from either Phineas or Milo that you guys wanted to implement? We talked a little about the Stace one, but that you were unable to do either because they just didn't work, or like you couldn't figure out.
We were able to figure out everything. The one that we kept butting our heads up against the wall about was literally, we wanted to do a zombie story, but we was like, well, if they can't eat brains, nobody can die. It just doesn't work. But we loved the idea of doing a takeoff on a zombie story, and it was actually Josh who pitched that as like an 11-minute episode. And we were like, oh no, this works so great. Let's do this, but let's do it as a big special. And so his first story that he was pitching as like a little tiny thing became a big thing. It's sort of like Lance Lecomte, our production coordinator, I think was his title, or production or a production assistant. I don't know. No.
Yeah.
But he's the one that not only did he do the logo, because he used to do graphic design. So the Phineas and Ferb logo is from him.
Yeah.
You know, but he also pitched a story idea that we really liked. We put it in as an 11. When we saw it, we realized, oh, this deserves to be a bigger story. And that became, we took that little short version and we wrote Second Dimension from that.
Yeah.
We were like, you know, like this is too good of a story, because in the story, Phineas and Ferb find out who Perry
is, right? And that's a big deal. That's like, you're like, breaking the status quo. It's a story worthy of
none of the Second Dimension stuff existed or anything like that, but that was such a good story idea. So he gets like a story credit, I think, or something on the movie, because that's sort of the emotional story of that is they find out that Perry's a thing. They're disillusioned by it. They and then they come to realize that he's always loved them,
right?
And, you know, and I felt like when we saw it in storyboard, we went all the way through like rough storyboards on it, and I said,
"This is not working."
This is partially it wasn't working in an 11-minute because you couldn't build up enough emotion to justify them erasing their minds,
right?
And you didn't have time to really make that work. And B, it was just too good a story to throw away on an 11-minute. It was like, this is wait. And I just went to the producer and said, what other show can we give these guys right now? Because they've been on this for a week. They're a week behind now. What, you know, like, and I gave them their choice of what, you know, it's like which of these 3 outlines do you like the best? You can have whatever you want. We're going to take this away from you. Yeah. And that was sort of the beginning of the Second Dimension movie, which I think really still holds up.
It really does, especially that last whole action scene. I don't know how you guys figured out the boards for that. That was like insane.
Well, what I would love about that is we did that before Avengers, right?
The giant portal in the sky that they have to shut down.
It's more specific. It's the one strangely shaped building. Has a device on it that is shooting a electrical current up into the sky and opening a circular portal into another area, and millions of robot soldiers come out.
Soldiers just coming through.
And they have to battle it all over town, and eventually they shut down the machine, and it closes it up, and all of the soldiers fall at the same time. It's identical to the end of Avengers. And when we first saw Avengers, which we saw before it opened even, we were like, they couldn't have, like,
no, they
had to have written this movie far enough back that they wouldn't have seen our animatic yet, right?
Was there a mole in the studio?
I can't imagine I cannot imagine it's in any way connected that way. But it was really, really eerie when we were watching. It was like there were shots that are the same shot. It's, you know, it was really strange.
Now, if you guys had decided to do the circular team up shot, then it would have been too far.
Yeah, that's why we did that shot in the Marvel.
Oh yeah, you actually got to.
We did exactly that shot. So sort of just like yeah.
We go back and forth.
It was fun.
Oh, a question about Second Dimension. Did you guys? You mentioned a little bit when we were talking about the end of Fear and Loathing. Were there ever plans to do a Milo Second Dimension episode? And if so, what would it be? No.
We were thinking about going to other dimensions, but it was not going to be the one where Doof is. It wasn't going to be the Second Dimension. It was just, you know, there were going to be portals to other places like this, but it would not be the specific same one.
So it would be more like,
there's a whole circular version of them that you can only go through clockwise, apparently.
Right.
so it was going to be one of those other ones.
Oh, so they would have done like an invention that maybe could hop across the circle.
Yeah, maybe.
Something.
Yeah.
Doof can invent anything and make it a handheld-inator now, anyways. So.
That's right.
I love how you guys included the chicken replacinator in Fear and Loathing. That was such a fun detail, because we're all just like, oh, it's a reference to the fact that it was earlier in the Milo season. Little do we know we get to Candace Against the Universe, and it's a crucial plot point that he brings it into space.
Yes, and I loved how we used it in Candace Against the Universe, because it solves a problem that it could easily solve with that, but you don't think of it that way. You don't think of it as a transporter for you. You know,
you think of it as the chicken.
Like this stupid thing that switches a stick with a chicken somewhere close by, and I felt like that was. I don't think that people saw that coming. When afterward you look back at it and go, oh, it's pretty obvious that would work, you know, and but nobody was like, use the chicken replacinator until they found out how it worked, and they were like, oh yes, they did it. It's really fun.
That was such a fun one to bring back.
Yeah.
Did that come into the conversation because of its inclusion in Milo, or?
I don't actually know why it ended up in there in the first place, but it seems so smart and so well thought out, but it may be something that we put in for one gag.
Oh, like the canoe at the beginning.
How to end it. You know what I mean?
It's like where Buford's just trying to get the canoe on, and then you went back and changed everything. Like,
yeah, it's. I think he brought it, and he shot the thing with it and turned it into just because we think that's the funniest. I think that's a Martin Olson idea. The device that you shoot a chicken with it and it replaces it, or you shoot something with it and it replaces it with the nearest chicken, not just any chicken, and it doesn't turn it into a chicken. It's not magic. It replaces it with the nearest chicken. I love that. And we brought it back for Milo, and it was like, we should have it in the movie too. I think that we put it in the movie before we figured out how to use it at the end, but I may be wrong. We may have put it in the movie because of how we were going to use it at the end.
If we're talking about favoritenators, one of my favorites is the Bring Out the Dessertinator, because it's just so absurdly specific.
When you want to end a party early.
He's just trying to end Roger's dessert parties early so he can take over.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because eventually they bring out the desserts and then everybody goes home. That's how it works.
And then I'll just waltz in and take over.
Yes. That's a bizarre one. I don't even remember what else happened in that episode.
He and Perry get it like on a sugar high, and they have a jumping session.
Yes. Okay, we're just gonna jump and jump and jump and jump. Yes.
There's a great bit of animation that where Perry has a sugar crash, and it's just one of the funniest things. He's just like laying on his back and his tail's flapping.
Yes. That's funny.
All right. So we mentioned a little bit before the crossover. That was a really huge undertaking. There was like a feature-length story. The animation companies had no idea what to do with this huge thing. So what was the process of writing it, especially with in the rap video, you put the whole story, the story outline board that everybody was breaking down in We're Gonna Do It Again. It had things like there was a spy drone plot, there was like Evil Orton in the future, and then
I think we made up those cards. We made up those cards for that rap video, because we said, people are going to freeze frame this and read these cards, so we made up a bunch of ridiculous cards that had nothing to do with what we were actually doing.
There was one that said
sure
everyone
enough,
dies.
Somebody freeze framed it and found those things. It's funny because there was a girl online who had this whole theory that
Orton was Melissa's real dad.
Orton was Melissa's real dad, and it was forever until she posted something we realized what that theory was from, and it was from something, I think it was in that rap video, where we had a cast poster that had all the characters next to their thing, and it said it was either it had Orton's name and a picture of her father, or vice versa. It was something where the person who was putting the poster together had made a mistake and had somehow linked those two. But what I find funny is that that they didn't see that, but I've seen this poster since then because we kept it for the longest time because the guy who plays Draco has long, curly, dark hair, right?
Right.
And whoever, like whatever intern that they gave the job to in casting to make this poster, and then make it big and put it on foam core. You know, it's like 4 feet by 4 feet, right? He put Michael Kohlroas, who plays Draco, he put his headshot under Weird Al Yankovic because I'm sure what happened in the you know, like I can only imagine he was like, and who's Weird Al Yankovic? Because he's a millennial and doesn't know yet, I guess. And somebody said, you can't miss him. He's the guy with the long curly brown hair. And he grabbed one guy with long, you know, like there are two guys on our show that have the same hair. This is true, and he put that there. So I took a picture of that and sent it to Michael and said,
"Oh my gosh,
hey, look who you are! All of a sudden,
you get to voice Milo."
And we kept that around because it made us laugh. But I hadn't even realized that there was that mistake with Orton and Mr. Chase, whose name I can't remember.
I think Adrian Patzer. We all headcanon that Melissa's dad moonlights as Iron Man because he also voices Iron Man.
Yes, he does.
Crossover special.
And we were and so we had it in the background of one shot, and she had zoomed in on it and found that and felt like that was a big story point that was going to happen. And then when she finally put that picture forward, I was like, oh, that's why she thinks that, because it was such a weird thing for her to fixate on if it hadn't been for some reason that she saw it.
I think there was a lot of theories, especially leading up to the insane wait with the crossover, which I don't know. Have you heard the story about how like the fans actually first saw it? So like in America, when it dropped,
oh yes, it aired way over there.
It aired in Japan on August 10th, and that day the Japan leak came out, and so all of us are trying to figure out how to contact the Japanese fans to get the English audio track. So, and in the end, one of us managed to get a Japanese fan to record the audio track using Google Translate and whatever, and he transferred like $10 overseas. And so he comes back and he's just got like this very echoey audio track. He like sleeping through half of it. But we put it together, and then that was the version that we were all watching back in August.
That's hilarious. That was so disappointing. We had this thing that we felt like could actually put Milo on the map. And then they waited for like a year or so to put it on the air, which I felt like was just weird. It was like, here's a thing that's a combination of, and it was sort of like, well, we have this event and we have this event and then we have this event. And I was like, look, if you aren't going to publicize it, that's nothing new for this show.
Right.
You know, Milo has not gotten any of your publicity love at all. Just put it on the air so that people can see it, because there are fans of this show.
Right.
And we're sort of slapping them in the face by not putting.
Well, it was such a long, because it was September of 2017, and then the crossover officially aired in America January of 2019. So it was over 16 months. Between episodes.
It was it just made me infuriated.
Well, and the fact that what really stirs the pot even more is that Disney asked you guys to do a special promo advertising that Doof was in the season finale, and they made you record a separate line saying, "Wait, the dog's name is Joji? What's that all about?" And that's not actually in the episode, but they did the animation for it, and they put in there like, "All right, this is it. This is the Phineas and Ferb crossover. We're gonna show that this is happening."
Well, that was actually our choice at that point. That was something that Josh came to me and said, okay, hear me out, because we were going to keep that a secret. And in a perfect world, if we had aired on Disney Channel and had been getting even the smallest amount of views you would get on Disney Channel as a regular show,
right,
then it would have been really great, because people would have known about the show and would be watching it every week. And then all these people who'd grown up with Phineas would suddenly see Doofenshmirtz at the end of that first season. And everything sort of built up to this moment where we revealed that Doof is Professor Time.
Right.
And we should probably say no, spoilers.
Spoilers if you haven't seen.
But Josh came to me when they were starting to talk about promoting this, and he said, I think that we ought to that showing people that Doofenshmirtz is in this show will get people to watch it, and I think it's more important for us to get people to watch it
than to protect
than
the
to
twist.
Surprise the few people who are already watching it.
That's a fair point.
And it was very heartbreaking to make that decision, but we actually made that decision to call them and say, if you want to use Doofenshmirtz, we can use Doofenshmirtz, and we can make a thing about it so that people will know it's building up to this moment and stuff. It sort of kills the fun surprise at the end if you've seen that already, because that's the whole thing's building up to this big fun surprise.
Well, yeah, and I think I've talked about like that episode, Milo Murphy's Law. To joke a second. At the end of Fungus Among Us, it goes like I think almost a full minute without a joke, and they're just in the build up to them meeting Professor Time to build to that moment. It makes it so much more impactful. Yeah.
So, I think it works well. I'm hoping that people will find it and binge it on Disney Plus, and they'll just get to then they'll come about that moment sort of naturally, and
it'll be like, wait, what?
Yeah, and we've got enough we're in the same universe things going on that it makes sense.
Yeah.
It's like a welcome surprise. But I love that, and I love the end of the crossover with Doof meeting his future self, and
that's such a big moment.
I love the rap song with me and Jermaine, which it's like, oh god, somebody suggested that. It's like, wait, you mean I get to write a rap that I can do with Jermaine Clement? I can be like the third Condor, It's like, yes, let's do that right now. So that was fun.
People ask, what was it a hard decision to cut a lot of the Isabella scenes from the crossover, given that she originally had like a bigger role as with the Firestorm girls?
I mean, it's always hard to cut any things. Those were the ones that made the most sense to cut, but just because story-wise they were sort of parallel stories, and was like, oh, if we cut this whole parallel story, then we can get to Time.
Carly says, why wasn't Isabel at the end of the crossover with the rest of the kids?
Was she not?
No, she's not with them at the end.
I have no idea. Just stupidity. You mean there's a shot of all the kids and Isabella isn't there with them?
At the end, they all go back to Milo's house to watch Dr. Zone, and she's not there.
That's weird that we would have. It's probably because the other kids were all super involved.
Yeah.
And her story was a sort of a separate story, so it may be that we just didn't think about it at the time. But there's things like that people get pissed off that Stacy and Jeremy were not in the finale of Phineas and Ferb, which I always think of them as secondary characters.
Yeah.
And we'd done these movies that had gotten so big, like the end of Second Dimension is like a big epic, war going on with on all these fronts. And I sort of wanted the finale to really be about the main characters that we love.
Right.
And I just like we thought every time we tried to shoehorn Stacy or Jeremy in there, it felt shoehorned in.
I think it was the inclusion of Monogram and Carl in the final number that with everybody else that sparked that. It's like if you're gonna have Carl.
In retrospect, I wish I had put Stacy and Jeremy in that final number.
All right.
I do feel like if I were gonna do something, with them, I would do it there. But we also we left a bunch of people. We left Norm out of the end of Carpe Diem at the end of Roller Coaster the Musical. There's things that just
they slip
you're not
by.
Thinking about it at the time, and then later you go, why didn't we put Norm in there? We went through so many old models to say who can we put in here. And,
even characters that never were actually animated, like Dr. Destructicon, Doof's old mentor.
Yes, exactly. He's in there dancing, for crying out loud, and we didn't put Norm in?
Exactly.
You know, there's things like that happen all the time, and you know, when you're show running, especially an animated show, you're working on like 20 different episodes at a time. You're checking in and just, you know, looking at an animatic 1 hour and then a pitch the next, and then
it's a lot to
process.
process.
Like, there's a lot to process, and stuff falls through the cracks, and you hope that other people find stuff too. But I'd seen that a bunch of times. I didn't notice that Norm wasn't there until it was on the air, and I'd seen it like twice.
And you're just like, oh, we missed it. But Roller Coaster the musical is so good. Like you can't fault that. That episode's
it's a good half hour. I like it a lot.
All right. This was a fun. Actually, I'll show you that too. There was a scene in the crossover where usually animation is they'll accidentally leave something out, but they accidentally put Perry into a scene that was a flashback to Fungus Among Us, and I don't know how he got there. I'll have to show it to you later when I can pull it up. But he's in the car with Cavendish, Dakota, and Milo as they're escaping the Pistachions after the warehouse when they revisit it in the Phineas and Ferb effect, and it makes.
But he wasn't in the original.
No. And it's just such a weird animation. Somebody had to put Perry in that car, and it made it to color, and there's just no other tie to...
I wonder if he was originally in it and we cut him out or something, and maybe it's weird that we would even have... You're going to have to send it to me. I'm going to have to figure out why that is.
Because he wasn't in the story of Fungus Among Us, I don't think. Unless that was an original idea. But again, it's so weird because the crossover was... boarded much later.
Yeah, we did the time travel stuff. We tried to make it really work within itself. Even the silly time travel rules that we made up.
Oh yeah.
We tried to make it work within itself. Now I've got to watch it again. I got to watch those 2 episodes again.
I was talking with Danny, and his score at the end of the Phineas and Ferb effect for that whole build up to the Professor Time scene is so good.
Yeah, it's so good. He's just fantastic.
I need a release of that track. So good.
Yeah. Danny can probably send it to you.
Let's see. Phineas and Ferb. Oh, this is one people. Phineas and Ferb's parents appear in the midst of all the wreckage and see Phineas and Ferb, Milo, and the whole gang, and Candace. So why wasn't Candace trying to bust them at the end when they're all in that shot together at the end of the crossover?
I think that was obviously not something that Phineas and Ferb did. Like that was obviously external forces coming, and so I don't think it's necessarily bustable. And I think that everybody's lives had just been saved. I think she just was, so much like at the end of the movie. There's times where you got to bust them, and there's times where you go like, "Thank God we made it out of this." So
exactly. All right, comments have
but
won.
They do see each other, don't they? That's funny.
Yeah, comments have won. They say, "Why does Bradley still have a plant arm?" And I wanted to tie this to the whole story with. It was originally supposed to be Melissa was going to become a full-time Pistachion. And then there was apparently some development stuff
that was just something Josh pitched. I was like, no, Melissa is not going to be a Pistachion for the rest of the series.
And then apparently during development there was it was supposed to be like a Hulk thing where like he would Hulk out and become a Pistachion instead of it being an arm. So what was the whole story of figuring out how to make Bradley's arm, work as a thing for his character?
Those were all things that Josh pitched, and I just thought wouldn't work. It would just be weird in the long run, and not weird in a good way. I didn't, I felt like it's fun to have one of the characters change in a way that's noticeable in the next season, but you don't want one of your main characters to look like a horror creature. Melissa is a cute character. She's like the cute girl. That's you're gonna alienate a bunch of the girls who are watching and stuff like that.
Right.
And I loved just having something so unexplainable to somebody who just jumped in that Bradley has an arm that's a plant. And we got so much fun out of that in the second season. Oh, Bradley, you're just pissed off because you still have a plant arm, and he's like. Why did he save everyone except me? I love that Bradley, who is the most
snarky, sarcastic.
Yeah, it's actually Vincent who is Phineas.
The most quotable line was like, "Oh no, I spilled my marbles all over the ground."
Yes.
That's one of people's favorite Bradley lines.
Yeah, he's great, and Vincent's just great in everything. He's fantastic.
Oh yeah, and it was.
You've been watching his TikToks he's doing with Mikey?
I have seen a couple of them. Yeah.
They're really just having a good time in quarantine.
Oh yeah. Let's see. So when I've talked with others on the show, and I think we've touched on it a little here, they mentioned the writing philosophy is like it's usually comedy first. So how do you feel about this with regards to like canon, lore, and continuity on like Milo? Because there's one line where they're in First Impressions, Dakota tells Cavendish that he took like a shortcut through the Mesozoic. Like, given how we know the time stream works, you can't take a shortcut through a different time period. So like, how do you feel about, the whole comedy first, especially when you're doing a show with more serialized storytelling when you expect people to pick up on all the details?
That's just Dakota just talking because Dakota's talking all the time. That's just him saying that, like there's no logic as to why that would take him less time to go through the Mesozoic. That's him accidentally going to the Mesozoic and going, oops, no, this isn't right, and going to the other place. So we took a shortcut through the Mesozoic. It's not actually in between those two places in time.
I got you.
Yeah, but a lot of times people say something that's really funny that we just go, okay, that's funny, and they don't have to mean everything they say.
Yeah.
So,
you can just kind of throw lines around and say like, well, somebody just said it. It's okay.
Yeah, it's him just BSing.
Let's see. What was the thought behind this is fun. What was the thought behind Doof making time travel public, and branding it, and the thought of the Time Bureau as an organization in the future being sort of government controlled? So what's in the future of the show? Doof kind of brands time travel. Does he give it to the government and he's just like, you can take it, or does he have his own separate time travel?
He uses it to brand himself as this big hero. It's sort of like oh, now my name actually means something, because nobody could even remember his name in our time, and now he's like okay, I'm Professor Time, and then I can sell time chips, and I can sell beach towels, and I can do all this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
I think that as people started using it, the government stepped in and regulated it in realizing that it could cause havoc to the present time if they weren't careful with it.
And then they establish the organization
but by then Doofenshmirtz has already made all this money, and he's
no longer living off the alimony checks.
Yeah, exactly. He's a celebrity, and he's a hero. He doesn't have to still be the person in charge of time travel at that point.
Gotcha.
He's George Lucas. He created Star Wars, and now he's just off doing his own stuff somewhere.
Just kind of, yeah.
He's doing Strange Magic.
Have you seen Strange Magic? I have not.
No. No. You know why? Because I've seen the trailer. And I want to remember him differently, I think.
Did you ever get to meet him working on Phineas and Ferb Star Wars, or no? Was he totally?
No, he was. But by that time, Disney had bought it from him. He wasn't really as involved anymore. But I didn't even meet Kathleen Kennedy. We met with some of the the executives that they sent for us.
Somebody says this is
really lovely.
This is really obscure, so I'm picking it out. Did you have any influence on Kim Possible appearing in the Spot the Difference version of the Lawn Gnome Beach Party of Terror? And does this mean that Kim Possible is canon in Milo Murphy's Law?
She's only canon in that one Spot the Difference episode. I just asked if we could do that. So I guess I had that involvement. It was like, what we were just trying to come up with weird things we could do for the Spot the Difference episodes, which I think were really fun. I think that was a fun thing to do.
Yeah.
Because it made people watch it more than once. which was like, okay, we're going to watch it now, and then we're going to watch this episode, and we're going to see what are all the things that they've changed.
It was a good part of promotion.
I don't know that she exists in Milo's thing, in Phineas and Ferb. I don't think that's necessarily canon, because also Doofenshmirtz is not in the background of some, like a bunch of those things are just sort of,
they're just fun one-offs. They're not meant to be, this is the canon of the show.
Yeah.
Yeah, these are all the fun questions that fans
they sort of exist outside the canon, much like the big musical number does at the end of the finale.
Right, where it's just you guys talking to us through the characters, essentially.
Yeah, exactly. They exist outside the canon that way, and it's almost as though all of those characters are actors in this show. Even these cartoon guys are performers, and they just want to come out and do a big number at the end. It's like a big end of a big Broadway show is what that was.
Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, Perry Grip.
Yes.
Let's see. Let's talk about the writers' room debate around recurring raccoon. So there is some dissension about his use. What was the story behind that, and how is it different than Melissa's hamster nemesis, who was cut from the show in conception? Why was Melissa's hamster nemesis on the board for so long got cut versus recurring raccoon?
I don't know that her hamster nemesis was a real.
Was that just Josh trolling us?
That may be Josh trolling you. I certainly don't remember any serious discussion of Melissa's hamster nemesis, but I don't remember everything that was said in those rooms. As far as recurring raccoon, Maria and Val came up with this idea of this raccoon, and then we would just bring him back periodically. He'd just run in because they'd seen this video of a raccoon stealing some little pieces of food from somebody at a campsite and then running off on its back two legs, which made us all laugh. And we're like, we'll just have him like come in and steal stuff and run off like that just periodically. He'll be like a recurring character. He'll be recurring raccoon. And then I literally wrote that theme song in as long as it took to do that theme to listen to that theme song. I said, you've seen him before, you're gonna see him soon. He's recurring raccoon. And they were like, yes, we should do that. I was like, give me a phone. I better record that before I forget it. So we just kept having him come back and playing that theme song, which is, I think, what makes him funny. Is
the amount of fanfare that is given to his appearances is so undue.
It's great. Like, he doesn't do anything particularly interesting and stuff, but the theme song makes him valid to me. And Jim never really liked him because he doesn't actually do anything funny. It's just that there's this theme song about him that does it. So he's always like, I don't think we should do that anymore. And so the more Jim complained that we shouldn't do it anymore, the more we wanted to put it in. And so he would just find it and stuff. And I think we even put it into one of the episodes that Jim wrote, which he took real exception to. Like, there's a wait, that has my name on it.
I can't believe. We all thought when we were watching it air, oh, surely there's going to be some payoff with recurring raccoon in the season finale. He's going to show up in outer space, just out of nowhere, and didn't have.
Well, there is payoff. He's in the Phineas movie.
I can't even tell you how excited I was to see him. Like when I was just like, yes.
I'm telling you, if I'd had the time, I would have stopped that song and done his theme song in the middle of it, and then gone back to the song.
If his theme song had played in the middle of Us Against the Universe, that would have been.
It would have been really funny.
That would have been just the most chaotic energy.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh man. Did you and Kyle board Us Against the Universe together, or is that all Kyle?
That is almost all me, actually.
Oh wow.
He did a couple of shots that I specifically that I just gave him a rough for and said, "Can you do this?" And he just made them look really good. Like, there's a shot when Phineas and Phineas and Candace and Ferb are dancing on the pitcher's mound, and the camera is swooping around behind people's feet. That's Kyle did that, but I gave him a rough and said, I want something that looks like this, but you'll make it look a lot better. And he did all the levels panning and stuff like that. And he did the another one where I had done one and it just didn't look as dynamic as I wanted it to look. And so I drew one drawing of them all doing the marching across the top of the ship, where they stomp, 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 clap, turn, stomp, stomp.
That shot is so cool.
Yeah, so that's Kyle too, but they're just where I was just like, I could take all day and make this look half as good as Kyle's going to make it look, you know.
Yeah. Well, that's just his wheelhouse too, because I think he did all the location work for the baseball field as a whole, right?
Yes, exactly. That's all sort of based on his.
So he kind of knew it in and out. And...
Yeah.
Yeah, I will say the shading, the colors, everything about that final number is just so gorgeous. Turned out so good.
Yeah, but the fact that you think that was Kyle is a big compliment to me. I think, because I think Kyle is, there's not many people I think are a better board artist than me, because I have quite a high opinion of myself. But but Kyle is the only one that really comes to mind. I think when I really want something to look dynamic, I'll say, let's just put this through the Kyle machine, and it'll really rock.
Like, all right, we got to do giant DOG for Fear and Loathing. Send that off to Kyle. He'll know.
Yes, exactly. He'll make this really work.
He'll understand the perspective.
Yeah.
And you got to do some of the animation. I think the part where Phineas is kind of like, he's like pointing down like this when they're doing like, and we're strong. I think it's the first lead into the chorus. Yeah, I think that was one you were like drawing at home and animating, if I remember.
Oh no, I was fixing the face when they're running forward.
Oh, okay.
It's when they're running forward, because they'd given him angry eyes. And I'd done like a sterner look because they were saying something tough, and even that didn't work. But they had actually gone this way with him, like he's pissed, which doesn't work for Phineas's character at all.
Well, it's funny, they used Phineas's eyebrows a lot more in the movie, I feel like, ever than in the series. Like, there's so many scenes where the eyebrows come up.
Yeah,
which is cool. I like it. It's expressive. Yeah. Like, especially the part where he gets rejected by Candace and they're all kind of walking to their accommodations. There's the way the camera moves in that scene.
Well, Phineas doesn't show a lot of emotion except for in some of these longer versions where it's because he's sort of unflappable in a lot of ways. So in the series we wouldn't use them unless he had unless they were giving us a real emotion.
Right.
We wouldn't pop them in.
Like when he gets angry at Perry. You did.
Yes. Anybody else in here hiding a bizarre secret life they don't want to tell me about? Put your hand down, Ferb. I love that he doesn't even turn around. He just knows Ferb is raising his hand. People ask me, "What is that bizarre?" I was like, "I don't know."
That's one of those gags. It's just like, it's Ferb,
Yes, exactly. Of course he would say that.
Yeah. Let's see. There was a question: why was there never a Sarah and Vanessa interaction? It seems like such a logical thing in Milo. If you're going to bring in Doof, you're going to bring in Vanessa, and she's probably going to want to know who her dad is living with. How come her and Sarah never met?
I don't know. That like I think we only brought her in once or twice.
Yeah, it was just once
for that thing, and it was really just to remind people that Doof is a dad. I think I didn't want to spend more time with her character other than just to show this sweetness between her and her dad.
Yeah.
And there wasn't really anything about the story with Vanessa. Otherwise, she would have gotten to see a lot more people. I think.
Right. It was just an interesting thing. She's like, oh, my dad's building crumbled, and then we don't see her appear until 13, 14 episodes afterwards. And it's like, I'm
assuming she comes over to visit periodically, but it's not terribly interesting, so we didn't do those episodes.
Gotcha. This was an interesting story to tell there.
Yeah.
This was a joke that's like very obscure. It's in the episode where Doof is doing the what is it? He's trying to raise money through his telethon of evil, and he gets a check from the Nader Corporation. He's like, "Thank you, Sid and the guys." And then in Fungus Among Us, one of the pistachions, when they get shrunk, he says, "Nice going, genius. You turned Sid and the guys back into sprouts." Do we know who came up with Sid and the guys?
I don't know. I think that was also the name of the in the Remains of the Platypus. I think there was also originally a Sid and the Guys, and I think it got changed. I don't know. Sid and the Guys just sounds like the people at some shop or at some organization that you used to, that you're just saying hi to.
It's like, I used
probably
to.
written by the same writer, and I didn't realize we had used it before.
No, I just thought it was a fun connection. I was curious if it had if it was an inside joke, like nobody cares, Jim.
I didn't even know that those were the same.
All right. So what's it like on Milo? Milo and Melissa on Milo, they don't really have character arcs per se, even though it's a story-driven show. Zach definitely does. But what's it like to write a show like that where you have to keep the characters, basically they don't kind of really grow or change all that much, but you still have to tell, stories season per season. What's that like? What do you think?
We had done that with Phineas and Ferb for 10 years, so we knew we could. Melissa has some foibles and stuff which worked for us. She has the arc in the one where they go on the roller coaster.
Yeah, the fears.
The
yeah.
Lardland one, or Lard World.
Everybody calls it Lardland because that's what it was in development for so long.
Yes, exactly. But now it's Lard World now, right?
Yeah, it's Lard World.
Yeah, we couldn't do it because somebody had published a comic, like a one-page comic of a Lardland that was a takeoff on Disneyland. It's like, and we probably still could have done it if it hadn't been a takeoff on Disneyland, and if we weren't Disney doing it.
Yeah. It's like, we don't want to do that. There's a cool little detail in Fungus Among Us. They run past, pistachions are chasing them. They run past the roller coaster, and it breaks, and it essentially drains the coaster. And then it's never brought up, but at the end of the crossover, they're in the drained coaster track. And I just thought that was a fun detail between seasons that made it through.
That is, I'm sure, from Kyle.
Yeah.
Kyle would do all that stuff where he would think through. It's like, okay, now if this happens, then we're left with this. We can use this here, and this will be the place. That's
happens.
All.
He's really good at thinking through space.
Yeah, he's really good at making sure that stuff is all consistent from one place to another.
Yeah. Bye bye, Tofu.
There he is. What? Hey. Is my daughter.
Hello.
Stressing out. I don't know who you are, but
We're live on the internet.
Oh, you're live on the internet. Okay. Have fun, bye.
Okay, so I've seen a lot of people asking this one, and it's one you've answered, but I feel like it'll be nice to have a clip for people to share. Why did Monty and Vanessa break up? I don't think you've ever answered it on Interview before, so this is a good one to have.
I don't know, because it happened off screen. They, they just didn't last. I think they were a good couple, but I think everybody wanted to see Ferb end up with and I think she was destined to be with Ferb, but she couldn't be with Ferb when she was 16 and he's 9.
Right, exactly.
But if he's 19 and she's 23 or something like that, then it makes more sense. And so who knows? If we ever did more episodes of the show, we might show that breakup and maybe do it in a way that you're not disappointed with it.
I've always thought that would be a fun story arc to explore is finding out that Vanessa's dating Monty and kind of coming to terms with it.
He never really does in there, but yeah. It's like whenever people ask me things like that, I always try to think. I always stop myself from saying the worst possible answer to make it some horrible tragedy that makes you look at all the characters differently.
Do you know Owen Dennis, the creator of Infinity Train?
No.
So it's like a show on Cartoon Network, but whenever fans ask questions about things like that, he just always says, if they're like, are we going to see this character again? It's like, no, they died off screen after the events.
They died off screen.
It's like, that's just his answer for everything, which is funny.
Exactly. I have to stop myself from saying snarky stuff like that sometimes.
It's like, if somebody asks me this one more time.
Yes.
All right. People, I've seen this a couple times, so I figure I'll ask it. Are the aliens in Candace Against the Universe at the end when they're getting arrested? Are they being arrested by PIG agents, or is that the local police? Is that the DAN?
That's the local police, but I'm sure they'll be handed over to the PIG agents.
All right, there we go. So Josh talked a little bit about this. There was a Milo Murphy's Law episode that you guys tried to crack but could never do, and that was the Friday the 13th episode. Do you remember the development thinking of how we do Friday the 13th?
People would pitch that, but they never had a real concrete idea of what that would be, where everybody else would have bad luck and Milo would have good luck. It was sort of the idea behind it.
Yeah.
Which I think was fun. I would love to do that sometime, but we never really delved into it. It wasn't like we spent a lot of time on it. It was like that was a pitch and it was like, okay, well, what happens in it? And we were just busy with other episodes, and periodically would come back up and we'd say, okay, but what's the story? It's not just that. Stuff has to happen in this. So
we have to have a beginning, a middle, and an end, not just chaos.
Exactly. And I was all up for it, but I didn't push hard for it because we had a pretty full slate of stories already. I think.
Oh yeah, for sure. With season 2, you had so much happening with like Doof and Perry breaking up, Cavendish and Dakota breaking up, and keeping track of where all of them are and all that stuff.
Yeah. If we did as many episodes as we did on Phineas, we would have gotten to that. But we just,
there's only so many opportunities.
There's only so many opportunities at some point.
And
we never did Meet Me in St. Louis. So.
Yeah, people clamor for that all the time.
Yeah, we had 222 episodes of that show, and we never got to that one, or Stacy knowing like how that's going to help us.
Hey, that gives you a feed to push Disney for a season 5 or extra specials on Disney Plus. It's just like
we tried valiantly actually to come up with a bit in the movie that paid off Stacy knowing who Perry was.
Yeah, you mentioned a little bit of that.
It just always felt there was this whole other thing that where Perry ended up in the Mr. Slushy mobile with Jeremy and Stacy, and was able to solve things that helped be heroic there, and it was just adding so much time, and it was just dragging, and when we decided to put him on the belly of the Vlorkel, I think, it just worked a lot better. So
to have him save the tower from falling and.
Yeah, exactly. And that moment, that's like, to me, maybe the best moment in that whole movie.
Oh, definitely. It's so intense and epic. And
it's like, I start crying there because I'm so excited and how great. And, like.
It's like, this is a movie. Like, that's the moment you're like, this is something else. Like.
And I showed it to my daughter, and she cried at that point. It's like a big emotional thing that's happening in the middle of an action scene, and it makes it feel like a big theatrical movie, and it's this big heroic thing. And to me, it was always a little iffy whether or not we could pull it off, where Perry is never interacting with Doof.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like we've got this great Perry Doof dynamic, and we've set up a story in which that can't happen.
Right.
And so it was great when we finally got to get them together at the end, but having him be this hero off screen in really only 3 moments, it's really in the asteroid field,
the truck fight,
wagon, and then in that scene where the tower is falling. And because of those 3 moments, and really giving those the import that we did, he feels present in that movie.
Right.
And which could so easily, that was my worry at the beginning, is like, are we just going to lose him in here because we're going to forget that he's there? And I think we were able to do it.
Yeah, I think that must have been a really hard, you talk about all the third act things that got cut, like Irving and Perry in the truck and Milo. There is a lot that, was riding on. And the hard part about the third act is Doof is hardly in it, too, because you have so many other things that you need to figure out and resolve, especially with Super Big Doctor. And
we resolve, and doing a movie is really a big, weird jigsaw puzzle to make it really feel right, because when you're doing an 11-minute episode, you can make a couple cuts and then you can watch the 11-minute episode if you need to all the way through.
Figure out if the pacing, timing, everything works.
When you're doing an hour and a half, you work on 20 minutes at a time, and you make that 20 minutes work.
Right.
And then you put it all together like once every 2 weeks or something and sit down and watch the whole thing, because you don't have the time to watch a 90-minute movie to make sure it's all working. And you try to watch it with some sort of audience, even an audience that's seen it before, because you can always tell when
if they think parts are better or worse.
Yeah, and we did a whole bunch of versions of this movie where they saved Candace, and then Candace was with them all the way through the ending. And like they saved Candace, and then they all got together and went back and saved the Earth. But what it did is it made the emotional ending of the movie, which, and I think that I didn't even realize that was the end of that story, is really them getting back together with Candace.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I don't think I realized that. I was feeling like the end, like saving the world was the end of the story. And it wasn't.
No, because the emotional
very clear when we put it in the thing that people didn't care as much about the world as they care about Phineas and Ferb and Candace mending their problems. And it's sort of like my problem with the movie WALL-E, which has a great first 45 minutes, and then I forget what happened after that because I don't care about all those people that they save.
Right, you care about the relationship between WALL-E.
I cared about WALL-E and Eve.
Right.
And that's all I care about in that. And they spent so much time trying to save people, assuming we would care more about the people than the robots, and we don't. And when people tell me that's their favorite movie, I was like, really? I think the first 45 minutes of that movie is your favorite. And they go, oh yeah. And then they suddenly, oh, that's right. There's all that stuff with the overweight people and the people who've left. It's like that have put themselves in a bad position. So you sort of don't care about them because they've destroyed the Earth and now they're destroying themselves. And so we don't care about them as much. So aside from that little step off, when Candace and Phineas and Ferb got together on Feebleoot and then had to try to figure out a way to get back to Earth.
It just was so complicated to...
Yeah, and you would just feel the audience leaving us, you know what I mean? Just like even though all of those scenes were good and funny and moved forward really fast and stuff like that.
It just takes the power out of the third act because there's no emotional stakes.
It was Jeff Howard and Kate Condell who were sort of... we wrote it all originally with like the original 5 guys, and then they went off and did their things, and we brought these guys in to help sort of rearrange the structure of it. And Jeff kept saying, we need to cut out of this last act because there's too much time between this and that. And I agreed with him, but there wasn't a lot of stuff we had to cut that was available to cut. We would cut stuff down quicker and quicker and quicker, but we still had like 20 minutes.
It's like we still need to tell all this story and have this.
Yeah, this story has to happen, and then our editor.
At this point, there's no emotional arc between Super Big Doctor and Candace either. If she's already kind of gone back with her brothers.
Exactly. And then Anne is the one that suggested, wait, what if they don't save her there? And we also had this whole thing where they had to try to figure out how to launch their ship, which had been broken, and they slingshot around the sun and all that. There was all this other story going on that we needed in order to get them back you know, like originally super big doctor gets away, but they save Candace, and then they all find a way to get back to Earth. Well, all of that was taking up so much time, and it was really just killing the momentum. But you could only see it when it was all cut together, because all of those scenes worked really well together. And our editor, Ann Harding, said in a meeting, and that, wait a minute, what if we just keep Candace in captivity and they take her to Earth, and the boys have to come with her? They could even stow away on the, you know, like that. And then suddenly it was like, oh, then we could really save the moment where they get back together for almost the end of the movie, because now they get back together. There's one battle, and it's really sort of over. It's like within 5 minutes of the end of the movie, and all of that is the biggest, greatest action stuff, and it's Perry being a hero, and then there's a big song. It's like everything just goes up from there.
It builds to this, like, instead of a denouement, it makes it one last kind of rush to the finish. It kind of like provides an upward arc instead of a downward one, which is really cool. Exactly,
and I think it worked. You know, like, and the thing is, we had a screening on a Friday for the crew. We did a crew screening, and then we'd do an executive screening the next week. Is how we were doing it. And we did the crew screening, and it was still just sort of dying, and we could all tell that it was dying. And we had this punch-up meeting, and Anne said this thing that we all went, oh, yeah, that's actually a really good idea. And Bob and I got into the editing room on Monday morning, and I said, you know, what Anne said is we can make that work if we do this and this and this. And you know, just sort of said out loud the restructure of what we would need to do. But we have a screening tomorrow morning at 9 with the executives, and I want to do all of this to it before tomorrow morning at 9.
Oh.
Because I need to see it in front of an audience and see how that works, right? And Bob's like, there's no way we can do it. I'm saying, no. I can do this scene and this scene and this scene today. I know I can fix that because of it like this. I would need you to change the planets in this scene and do this scene and this scene and this scene. We can get Kyle to do this. I think we can all do it in one day and get it to Anne tonight at 5, and she'll be able to put it together. And he's like,
editors, we live such a hard life.
And I was like, we'll just start feeding her stuff as soon as we're done with it. And we just drew like the wind. And it was just me, and I think it was just me and Bob and Kyle were the only artists on staff at that point. And there was like 2 new scenes, which I think I did the new scenes, and there was fixing some other stuff. And there may have been 3, maybe Bob did one of the other, you know, like, but anyway, it was a lot of work to do very quickly. But we're the 3 fastest artists that I've ever worked with, is me and Bob and Kyle.
Right.
And we just tore through it and rearranged it, and Anne put it all together and stuff. And we screened it at 9 o'clock in the morning the next day, and it worked like nuts. And all the executives came out of that screening all smiley because it suddenly felt like a real movie. And they felt,
so
you know, like, and they came out just like, yeah, let's release this right now. It was like you could just feel the difference. And then the next employee screening, people were like, what did you do? It works so much better now. And it was sort of hard for them to tell what had changed, because it was all the same, mostly the same thing. They knew that one scene had been, you know, it had been, one sequence was gone, but replaced with something else. But they couldn't really, you know, it wasn't immediately obvious to people what had changed, but they could really feel it. And that's what's really exciting about a movie, when it suddenly gels. You can feel it in the room. Yeah. And I was just like so excited then. And then it just got better from then on, because then we had everything in the right place, and we could really just plus everything. And like, oh, you know what we need here? We need a shot of Doofenshmirtz and Vanessa and Perry back on the planet,
just to kind of put them in people's minds for their extra.
Yeah, just sitting there, and Doof will just be shooting a stick and switching at places with the chicken over and over again.
Yeah,
and then say, so what do you think they're doing back on Earth?
Yeah.
like, little things like that, and then really massaging the moment when Candace gets the gift from the boys and the holograms and all that sort of stuff. We just spent a lot of time making the structure that we now felt work even better, and I'm so proud of it.
I'm curious, since really Bob Bowen was the one who came up with the T-shirt idea, what was the original plan for defeating the aliens, if not the T-shirt cannon? Was she just going to come out with an axe and just start slicing them?
Well,
or was it?
Here's the thing. We had established that shooting them didn't kill them, is what that if they exploded, they would be just legs, and then a torso would grow back.
Right.
So we just had Candace grab one of their guns and go around and shoot a bunch of them, and it was about half and half. People were split right down the middle. Some people found it really distasteful and really ultra-violent, as funny as we made those bits. And I had them be ridiculous, like her on a stepladder shooting an alien in a house while he's brushing his teeth. And like an alien singing opera, and and an alien juggling in a circus, and like just did ridiculous things like that. And every one of them made me laugh personally. But it did just end up like her. She's going around and murdering people.
Yeah.
And it just and about half the people had that reaction to it, and half the people thought it was really funny. And I was like, I don't want to do something that alienates half of our audience.
Right.
And Bob said, and I was like, we'll just keep cutting it down and stuff. And it's like the fact that they make the Candace noise when they explode. I thought that would take some of the curse off of it. And it just wasn't doing it. Like every screening, there were still people who were like, I really feel like that's just too much violence for kids to watch. It's like, well, it's a ray gun for one, and they make a Candace noise, but I just didn't want to alienate half the audience. And I was trying to figure out a way out of it. And Bob came up and said, what if we establish that they're really excited when they get really excited and happy, that's when they explode. And we give them the T-shirt cannon, and she shoots the T-shirt cannon, and they get so excited that they got free T-shirts that they explode. I was like, there is no way that is going to work. That's not how this is going to work. It will take too much time to explain that, and it'll take too much time to actually do it, because there's a certain rhythm to the explosions that have to happen really fast in order for the comedy to still work.
Right.
And he's like, okay. And then he went home that night, that weekend, and fixed that whole scene to where it is now, and showed it to me in the morning. He's like, okay, I know you said no, but I just wanted, I just couldn't help myself because, I'm a little OCD. I just, I want to go ahead and I'm just going to show this to you. And he showed it to me. And I was in tears laughing at it. And I was like, okay, in that case, we have to say, how quickly can we establish that they explode when they get really happy and
then
excited?
You kind of put that earlier into the movie.
Exactly. And then we put it in there, and that line about birthdays here are a blood, like when they get free stuff. And then we had Candace, we got it down to like 3 lines.
Yeah.
3 short lines. She's like, oh, that just happens when they get excited.
And you get the point. It gets it across.
Yeah. That just happens when they get excited. He'll grow back. That just happens when they get excited. Birthdays here are a blood, especially when they get free stuff. Birthdays here are a bloodbath. Right. Note to self:
no free stuff.
We have her say that again, so that it sticks in our brain. We just had it repeat. And it's literally it's really those 2 lines that did it, and I think it works. It's so much funnier.
It really does.
That way, like just like my birthday, bam. It's like it's so, and I just laughed so hard at it, and so thank God for Bob Bowen being there, because I was not going to solve that anytime soon.
Yeah. Was there ever a version with more scenes with Vanessa on the planet, kind of doing her thing, or?
Um, we had to actually keep reminding ourselves to touch on Vanessa. I think that there were probably less scenes of Vanessa.
Oh, and you
And we had to like,
add
wait a
them.
minute, we're starting to real, like we knew that she was going to be off screen and it was going to be a very secondary story that she's still there. And it was a hard thing to do. It was a hard thing to write because the boys have to constantly be wanting to save their sister, but we have to remind the audience constantly
why Doof is there.
Yeah, why Doof is there, and we don't want them to be like callous about well, and Vanessa too. You don't
Right.
want her to be the Aunt Peggy of the show, but she's really the Aunt Peggy in that case, and we really wanted to keep her alive. So periodically, like we had that thing where, okay, Doof can't leave if he thinks Vanessa is still there. He can't go back with them.
Right, and that changed when you kind of changed where the emotional moment was.
Yes, and Phineas and Ferb can't really leave if they're leaving Vanessa there to die, right?
Right.
It's like, so we had to have that thing where there's this moment where Doof suddenly realizes Vanessa is still here, and he says, "Wait, no, you guys do this. We're going to split up and both take different responsibilities." And then Isabella slapping the badge on him and telling him to make it back to Earth was a great moment. That makes me tear up a lot. And but there was a lot of very specific orchestration to get to that point where it's like, okay, now it makes sense, and nobody is being callous and leaving anybody behind.
Right.
Nobody is, because you don't want them to be like, well, we're going to go save our sister. Screw your daughter. We don't want that.
Right.
There was a lot of balls that you're juggling when you're making a feature, and just getting it down to where it works the best to have the characters remain true to themselves is sometimes a lot of work.
Was there ever a thought to include Stacy and Jeremy in a bigger role in the movie, or
no? Very early we sort of nixed that. They were also sort of like, well, we do want to try to include them. Where can we put them?
Yeah.
Sort of thing. That's why they worked their way back into the, we put that break in for her to talk to Stacy at the beginning, so that people who had not seen the whole series would know, oh, this is a friend of Candace's.
Right.
And we mentioned Jeremy at the time, so there's a lot of little things where it's like, okay, if no one has seen Phineas and Ferb before this, if this is their first entree into the Phineas and Ferb world, how do we make sure that
I think the scene with them at the end is a nice respite in the midst of the final battle when you're having all that third act action. It's nice. Yeah. Oh, we're just gonna have a nice little conversation scene in here. It breaks up the pacing, which is good.
And I loved that Jeremy does live action role playing. made me very happy.
That was the funniest thing.
That was Bob Bowen too. That was something he just threw in.
Did you make Bob go back and watch all of Phineas and Ferb before he came on to Milo, or had he already seen it?
He'd seen enough of it, and he had kids that were that age, so he started watching it. But if you've seen, I sort of feel like if you watch the roller coaster episode, maybe 2 other episodes, you get that show enough to know what it is,
right?
And who the characters are and stuff like that. He did some, when we were going into this movie, he did some research and watched a bunch of episodes. I just don't know if he's still seen the whole thing, although he might have, because his kids were getting obsessed with it, so he might have sat through the whole.
It's like you showed him the highlights.
Yeah, exactly, and he would periodically ask stuff about it. Like, he's the one that said, are there designs for these space adventure characters? And we said, oh yes there are. Is there a theme song that I can use? And I was like, yeah, but it's real short. And I went and got the theme song from like my iTunes library and realized, oh wait, We wrote this long
made it.
version of this theme song. We just didn't use it. We only used the space adventure. It's an adventure in space, but there's this whole opening, and I was like, oh, look at this. And he was like, well, I'm using all of that. And he did that because he's a huge Star Trek nerd. He's got there's a sound machine you can do that's a like when people open a door will make or walk through your door will make the sound of the Star Trek doors opening. You know, he's got that in his office, so you'd walk in, you feel like you were entering the bridge. It's very funny.
Oh, it's so funny. Yeah, wow, that was a lot on Candace Against the Universe and just the development of the whole thing, and yeah, it went through a lot. Was there? I think you kind of mentioned moving the emotional part. Like, was that like when they reconciled? Was like just Buford and Baljeet and Isabella just kind of sitting around watching, like, oh, you're having this nice moment.
That originally that happened a bunch of different places too, because originally Candace was with them and they were trying to use this baseball launcher to knock off the big cannon from the top of the ship, and there was all this stuff that Kyle did that was all spectacular.
Oh, so you brought back the little baseball launcher?
Yes.
Yes.
No, it wasn't the baseball launcher from Second Dimension or Meep. It was just the baseball, like a pitching machine.
Oh, I see.
They were using a pitching machine and doing all this stuff, and they built a thing to try to cut off the head of the plant and stuff, and it was, there's some really great stuff of the boys and Candace all working together, but it was not. It was just taking too long and stuff. I should probably find some of that and put it on TikTok or something because those scenes are really great.
Yeah, absolutely. See all the different versions of how it kind of went down. So I'm guessing you probably had the first 2/3 of the movie. Those were more kind of set in stone rather than the last half, since it was more flexible.
Yeah, pretty much. Other than having 2 full songs that we cut down to 1 chorus of Universe is Against Me.
Do you remember this was a fandom moment in 2018 when the Universe is Against Me storyboard leaked online?
Yes, I remember, because I had to call that board artist and chew him out about it. And I had to get him to pull it down before I responded to that at all.
Yeah.
And then I had to respond in a way where I wasn't really lying, but was not, because I think what I said was, one of these days I'll put up a bunch of the cut scenes from Phineas and Ferb or something, something like that.
We were all like,
and at that point, that scene had not been cut from the movie yet.
So we were seeing future Phineas and Ferb there.
I think it's still me singing it. I think it's still my voice singing. I think that's my original demo on the one that he put up there. But it's since been put.
Oh no! I just was wondering which, because we all kind of had that, and then when the movie was announced, we were like, oh,
wait a minute.
That makes.
Yeah, no, that was not supposed to go on the internet, and that board artist knew better. I don't know how that happened.
I think it wasn't even public. I think it was just unlisted, and you go through YouTube and you search hard enough, you can find.
Oh, is that what it was?
Yeah, you can find basically anything. So yeah, that's the fun and danger of the internet. It's like when you posted the Phineas Star Wars.
Yes, exactly. Oh crap! I posted this accidentally.
It's true. This, yeah.
Very funny.
Yeah. Well, would you ever think about showing the full animatic for that song at some point on TikTok or throw it up on YouTube?
Yeah. I would put it up on YouTube or something like that. If I may have to get permission from Disney to do that. What they ought to do, and actually what I'll probably pitch to them is we should put together a little extras thing to put with the movie because the movie did really, really well for that first month, but I'm sure that the views have slowly gone down. I think that if we put some extra stuff into it.
But it's weird. They made the little featurettes for Twitter, and that was the only place they posted them was on Twitter. It was so weird.
Yeah.
The whole behind the scenes and the music and in a manual and there were interviews, and I was like, why is this only on Twitter? Why is this on no other social media?
Yeah, well, they should put it on you know, it should be extras on Disney Plus. When you click on the movie, you should
Exactly.
be able
Like,
to
you made the extras. Why is it not there?
Yeah,
It's just a weird thing.
Yeah, they don't know what to do with streaming yet. They don't.
They're still trying to figure it
so,
out.
Well, it's such a new thing that nobody's really figured it out. And, you know, even Netflix does some things that I think, really, if you did this, it would be better for you. But okay.
So was the Irving scene just that one scene that you posted, or was there a larger?
No, there's a scene where he is all happy because he actually brought a gas mask. And what it was is super big doctor, you know, now just tells them to stand up, sit down, bark like an eargwat, and they say, and they all just look at her. You look confused at her, and she goes, "It's like a dog but bigger." And then they all start barking like dogs, and that's why Irving is acting like a dog.
Yeah, people had asked about that. The gas masks, they're pretty important, but they were never set up. Was there ever a scene where we saw them packing the gas masks?
Phineas and Ferb just happen to have gas masks with them. Why not?
They just all have enough gas masks.
Anything they really need is just behind their back somewhere. You know, that's their cartoon characters. You know, where does Perry put his hat?
Exactly.
And his parachute and stuff like that. It's
like, wait, was he wearing that parachute before?
Yes, exactly.
And Milo.
Yes. No, that was fun. That whole sequence was a lot of fun. But you know, these were all things that, in order to make the ending really work, we had to make sure that there was not a lot of time after, you know, after certain things happened. And then we also had the executives making sure that we didn't make it too long. You know, it's like they would have been much happier if it was 79 minutes.
Really?
You know, it's like, just because I don't know why.
They think kids' attention span is shorter, which is kind of weird if they're asking you to do a full movie, but it's like
they wanted to cut adulting at one point.
Yeah, Swampy was mentioning that. That's really strange.
The adulting song. They really wanted to cut the fourth wall joke. That was,
you talked about that, where they were just like
had to really fight for
not having it.
Yeah, I literally, I think I had to say at one point that was like, I'm not going to cut this joke. If you want this joke out of the picture, you'd first have to replace me because I'm the one with the scissors. It was that sort of thing. But then when they did the testing, it was like everybody's favorite. All of the Phineas fans, that was their number one favorite scene. So,
oh yeah.
So then we stopped hearing that as as much. They were like,
there's also there's also another fun little payoff in that scene with the mustache alien who's been carrying around this stool for the entire movie. He finally gets to be on the bridge and stand on the stool, and it happens like right before that scene.
You know, that's not what it's for. Really, that was Bob and I laugh about the fact that he's still in the movie, because originally we showed that she was evil earlier, and she would say Sid. You know, his name's Sid. Sid and the guys. There you go. And,
Sid and the guys are the aliens. That's it. Look at that.
And he would come over, put this stool down, stand on it, and it would raise him up to her level with his mustache so that she could laugh and twirl his mustache in front of her
She
face.
did do that at one point in the movie when she
Did
finally
she?
has her big... Well, it's not... They're just walking out of the room when she's walking away from Candace. She actually is twirling the mustache as she walks out of the room.
Oh, that's right.
It's really clever because
right.
it's like she has her big villain moment.
Off. Yes. Well, but that's what the stool was for, is that he could be up high enough that she could use his mustache as her own. So
that's fun. There's so many fun details with the aliens you guys did on Feeble Oot.
Yeah, when she's on the when they leave her on the running machine on the treadmill.
Yeah.
She walks off and she's got his. I remember.
I like how Bob Bowen still managed to throw in not only Trucker Ted, but also a Trucker Ted-esque gag with toilet flour, where he's on the.
You want to know why Trucker Ted is in there? Because it wasn't him. I asked him to put Trucker Ted in there because I wanted his voice as toilet flour, but according to SAG rules, if you're involved in the making of the show,
yeah,
we can't just cast that person we have to do an audition and hear several people. You know, like if you're a supervisory person on the series, you have to, and you want to have them do a new role, you have to audition them and a certain number of other people and go through this whole process that we didn't have time to do, especially when I knew that I wanted him to be Toilet Flower. But if they're already doing a role that already exists,
you don't have to audition them.
You don't have to audition them because you get 2 other voices from them, and when they're in the studio. So there is, which leads to just stupid stuff to get around that rule. Like on Milo once, we wrote a line for Trucker Ted that was off screen, like him because we wanted Bob to do this one particular role because his reads were so funny. And
was that the one with the Danville Forest? And it's like, hi folks, today we're in the middle of the Danville Forest. We were gonna.
No, I don't remember what the episode was, but I know that Dakota and Cavendish are in an abandoned parking lot because the line we wrote was because we didn't have any crowd scenes at all, right? So we wrote a line at the beginning that just said, Trucker Ted off screen. Hey, what are you doing in that parking lot?
I don't think that didn't make it in. That didn't make it in.
No, of course we were going to put that in the show, but we had to have it in the script so that we already had him as Trucker Ted, so that we like, we just happened to decide later that scene didn't work with that line in there. I don't know what we were thinking, so we cut the line later, and that's how he ended up. I forget what role he was doing in that, but there was like, no, we need to have Bob in this. And it's like, yeah, but he's not doing any other roles in this. Is like, look, I'm writing a line for him right here, and we recorded
funny.
it. He got paid to record that line, and then we threw it out later when it's like, because it was never really going to work.
Everybody headcans that Trucker Ted was the one who delivered the John P. Tri-State statue because that.
Oh, I'm sure he is. I'm sure he is. And I did like putting him in there in that one just because he's such a weird side character in Milo who became really funny. For Christmas one year, Bob made Trucker Ted shirts for the whole crew. and we all wore Trucker Ted shirts and so on his birthday, everybody wore their Trucker Ted shirt to work, and we took a picture with him, and he's the only one without a Trucker Ted shirt on.
Oh, who do I need to contact to get a Beaver Pete shirt? Like,
probably Bob. He's got them. I've got one somewhere in my closet. I love Beaver Pete, and Beaver Pete is entirely Bob's idea too.
That was such a fun random way to include Roger into the story too.
Yeah. He was in the original drawing for that statue, but he wasn't named. And originally Kyle did that section where everybody's like, "Oh, thank goodness it's all right," and then it just comes down and goes smash, like in this really horrific way. And then Bob took it and milked it. And I was like, here's the thing, Bob, it's really funny, but unless we can cut this much out of some other place, it's going to have to go at some point. And we worked really hard and cut that much out of other places in order to get that in there.
I think that's definitely one of Bob's things as a director. He likes the long jokes that go on for too long.
Yes.
To make them funny. You can tell that in Candace there's like, I think there's like 5 or 6. There's the one you're talking about with the scooter where the alien runs off screen. They're all kind of watching him.
Yeah.
There's the meet our leader, which is going on for so long and they're just waiting.
Although
for the doors to open.
that was entirely Kate McCucci actually.
Who did that one?
That had nothing to do with Bob. The opening of the door and the whole song, the song like taking forever to get to the end was Kate McCucci's idea when we were writing it.
Somebody asks, do you like fish sandwiches? And if not, is that why Dakota doesn't like them?
I don't particularly like fish sandwiches, but I don't dislike them. I don't remember why Dakota doesn't like fish sandwiches. It may have just been funny to have him because he eats everything. I think we probably thought it was funny to have him.
One thing.
No, I don't really like fish sandwiches.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think John Barry has talked a little bit about the canned theatrical film, like how it was going to explore how Monogram and what's his name, Dr. Destructicon were like agents back in the past. And...
There was originally some backup to that made sense. There were several different versions of that.
And it was like, it was Agent Monogram, and then like Dr. Destructicon was trying to sabotage the new animal agent program. And so it like showed how Alka transitioned from being a human organization to an animal organization, which I thought that seems like a really cool story. Can you talk to that story at all?
I don't really remember that story other than what you're just saying there. Those are all things that John pitched early on. That's not what even ended up, I think, in that version of the script. But there was an outline that included that at one point. We had art done for it.
Oh, that's so cool.
But and I think I've even posted some of that art. Yes.
So sorry. When will you be done?
I don't know. When do you need me?
It depends.
We've been doing this for a while, so I can.
He can pop out for a sec. I can take the screen for a sec.
I'm wondering like time frame, because I can ask Mom.
Ask Mo. Okay, bye.
You're good to hop out for a sec if you ever need to. It's fine.
That's all right. It's all right.
Okay, this one's another one I've seen a lot.
That was her. I want something specific from you, and I'm going to be really nice voice. She's like, "Can you take me to the store or something?"
Right. Yeah.
Which Mom can do just as easy.
Oh, what was I gonna say? Somebody. What happened to Major Monogram at the Academy? We don't need to know. That's okay.
We don't. But it was traumatic in some way.
Somebody says, I think the Badge Isabella was threatening Doof.
I will say this about that is the Academy, the number 2 guy at the channel was Adam Bonnet. He's since moved on to something else, but he was giving us notes on that, and he was like, and I'm assuming we're going to cut that whole thing about the Academy, and we were like, no, and he's like, well, it doesn't make sense. I said, well, we're not cutting that. That's the Monday morning gag. That's the gag people are going to put on the internet and talk about and stuff like that. And you know, like that's the gag people are going to ask me about at Comic-Con, because it's the weirdest gag that they're going to wonder what that's all about. Yeah. And he said, I will give you $100 for every person who asks you about that. And he owes me like $1,500 at this point. Well, 16, because you just asked. And I told him at one point, I was like, you're up to $1,200 for this. He said, would you accept Hannah Montana merchandise in trade? And I was like, no, that's gonna be for that. But it's like I know my audience. That was why I wanted to keep the fourth wall gag in, because I know the audience and I know what it is they'll respond to. And
exactly.
Sure enough, that's like everybody's favorite. It was mentioned in like 8 of the 14 rave reviews we got. As the thing that makes it. You need the stuff that's unique and crazy and isn't what you're expecting, and does pull you out of it a little bit in order to.
Right, because at the end of the day, it is a movie. And it's like, yes. And that's how you're going to talk about it and consume it and all that. Yeah. So, people have been asking if it's implied at the end of the movie that they all get their minds erased because of Perry's watch. Is that the implication, that they won't remember?
No.
At the end of the day.
People ask this, and I was like, oh, people are reading way too much into that, because he just covers it up and then goes back to looking like a thing, and they're just like, oh, I wonder what that noise was. And they, like, strange things happen all the time, and if it doesn't continue to happen, you just forget about it.
I mean, Danville's destroyed on like a weekly basis.
Yeah, they're not remembering that after that happened. They were like, oh, there was that weird noise. I wonder where it came from. That's the next scene that they let go. But it's just like, it's supposed to be a close call is what it's supposed to be.
And then other people, this was another one I've seen a lot. What happened with Vanessa's Alka internship from the last day of summer? Because Doof goes to Alka and she's not there in Alka Files. So did she quit Alka after getting her internship? Or
It may be that she and Monty had a falling out right, like very close after that, and she was like, "Well, I was only going to go there to hang out with Monty, but we're not going to happen." I think that's sort of like it's like she was following a guy into that, and then he was no longer as important.
that's the best theory I've heard for it. Or well, I guess we'll accept it as canon. She was going to Alka for Monty, and they broke up.
Yeah, her boyfriend was there. She was like, "Oh, that sounds like fun," and then I was like, okay, no, I don't want to see him every day. That's gonna be a lot of weird nods in the hallway.
Okay, given time travel, who is older, Cavendish or Dakota?
Given time travel, I mean, who is physically older?
Yeah.
Cavendish is older than Dakota. He's in every version of that. He's the older guy.
Emotionally, physically,
chronologically, and he's been killed many, many more times.
That's such a fun concept.
I love that. I love that concept so much. I think that was nominated for an Emmy.
It was an Annie, I think, but still.
An Annie, that's what it was. Yeah.
Really cool.
It's just so weird.
And then bringing it back for the crossover to fight the pistachios.
Did Josh tell you when he first turned in that outline, like the premise for that show? Our executive asked him, "Is this a real premise that you want to make, or are you just punking me?"
Yeah.
Because it was just so weird and off the wall, and in premise form, that's a really hard concept to get through
in 11 minutes. Like,
yeah, and then to get it all done, like it's very easy to follow when you get the dialogue in to really, explain it, and Bob did that hilarious run of all the times that Cavendish had died.
And it's set to the cheery music, and everyone's always like, "We can't believe that made it to final with Cavendish's skeleton and his head exploded."
It's so much fun. I love that episode so much.
Oh yeah, and
hey, it's Cavendish. What are you gonna do?
Yes. No, and I love that it's open ended too. Like it just kind of tells its story, and it doesn't give a definitive opinion about the island or its existence. It's just we're just gonna tell this story, and all the implications that comes with are just gonna sit with everybody once it's over.
Very funny.
But it's great episode. All right. Somebody asks, since Candace Against the Universe was the first thing that you had to do without ad breaks, did that affect how you wrote the film?
It did, actually, because you often write to an ad break. But it didn't affect it like we had to do something extra. It's like there was something that there was something extra that we didn't have to do. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's like it was easier to not write to the ad breaks and just write to the transitions.
Right. All right.
We didn't have to have something that was gonna like, oh, here's a cliffhanger here, so that people will come back after the break. It's
like when Perry sees the second dimension, he's like, oh, and then you cut to, and then it's like, oh. Yeah.
There are places we could put ad breaks if we wanted to, but we didn't have to think about, okay, on this minute we've got a commercial break we're going to go to.
Somebody asks, what's your favorite design from? I know we talked about the ship, but like, do you have a favorite design from Milo Murphy's Law that like really impressed you, like visually? Was it like maybe the production design on Octalia, or
I really like the giant Milo that they get into to focus the Milo energy with Phineas and Ferb.
Yes.
I like that, and I think that we explained it well enough so you could tell what was going on. I think that was really fun.
Yeah. All right.
And I also really like seeing enormous DOG walking through Octalia.
Yes. That whole episode, just in concept, I think it works so well.
Yeah, it's very fun.
Yeah, especially with Doof. They're going to approach it with the Reducinator, and he has it set to enlarge. So if that had actually been successful, they would have made the sphere.
It would have ruined the planet. Yeah, it's like, wow, I'm glad we figured that out before I shot the sphere with it.
Yeah. this was another one. The writers, specifically Josh, I think he's talked about Doof being retconned as Xavier Onassis from Quantum Boogaloo. Do you remember any of that with the time travel guy who?
We thought about that, about whether he was Xavier Onassis or not, because his thing looks a little bit like that same machine.
Right.
They all sort of look like that 1950s version of H.G. Wells' Time Machine.
The Orton Molson.
Yes.
That's such a fun name to
Yes.
reverse Martin Olson.
Yes.
Orton Molson.
Yes.
But I think that's part of Milo Murphy's Law, is like it's a very personal show to I think like everyone who worked on it. Like everything in it is very, like, I think more so than Phineas even, like it's very, this is our little show that we put together. If that makes any sense. Like in a great way.
Yeah.
Kind of talking about missing Milo, what was it like to go from 11-minute stories to a big 45-minute on a show like Milo without ever a step like with Phineas where he did 22 minutes and then larger?
I was just trying to figure out if we ever did a 22-minute episode of Milo, and I don't think we did.
You did Screamatorium. Screamatorium was 22.
Okay.
Fungus at the end of season 1, that was a 22. The Christmas one was technically 22.
Okay, so we did like 3 or 4.
Yeah, but they all came after.
Most of the time they were 11s. It's a very different, an 11-minute story is just pack as many gags as you can into a story that has a beginning, middle, and an end, and a feature has a much more specific structure in a way.
Yeah.
So it's just changing gears in your head to do it. I'm glad that we, like the original Phineas movie, the Second Dimension movie, we did in a really fun way, but in retrospect, it was the least productive way to do it, which was we, because Phineas was an outline show. We would give 2 board artists an outline, and they would write the dialogue and the gags based on that outline, and be in a room together and try to make each other laugh. And for that, it was this little, there's a structure to Phineas that was sort of like this scaffolding that we could just hang gags on. And for that movie, we did it that way, where we're like, okay, here's the big story. We did a very specific outline of the story. You take this section, you take this section, you take this section to all the storyboard teams.
Right.
And they would go into their rooms and do what they do, which is just add lots of gags and tangents and stuff like that onto it. And then suddenly that movie would have been 5 hours long or something, and wouldn't have really told that story. And because when you're doing a feature, there's some scenes that are very important and need to have some stuff added to them. But the in-between scenes really need to be expeditious and get us from one place to the other.
Right.
And so that's why we had to rewrite almost that entire movie and redraw almost that entire movie. And for this one, we did a script that we could add to if we wanted to, and subtract from if we wanted to. But at least the drawings we got were all usable. Okay, this stuff's going in. If we're redrawing it, it's because we want it to look better, not because we had to rewrite that entire section.
Right.
It's a very different animal. I like both of them a lot. I like finishing a story on a regular basis. And I like that sort of short form. I would even like to do 7 minutes, which But I've even pitched that as like, let's do a show that's 1 11-minute, 1 7-minute, and 1 4-minute thing. It's like they don't seem to be excited by that idea.
Well, streaming, it's certainly closer to possibility. Given
it's something we can maybe get away with now.
Yeah, but back on just on regular TV.
Yeah, it wasn't going to work.
Some people are saying, why did Cavendish and Dakota never have a duet?
Because then we'd have to have Swampy sing. We're continuing the Monogram doesn't get to sing, which is not even true. Swampy sang many of the several songs in in Phineas and Ferb. He's got to find someone to sing.
Stacking steel, laying bricks, pounding nails, and moving up quick.
Yeah, it's I don't know what it just never came up.
Oh, this is another one. Is it true that
Coda doesn't even really sing anything other than the Going to the Zoo song, does he?
He sings The Last Halloween. I was actually going to ask if you remembered any of that and sing it as Dakota.
Oh, that's right.
Bum,
It's
bum,
a great
bum,
song.
bum,
I love
bum,
that song.
bum. I think I understand. I think I get the knack. It's just a way to get free candy.
What a racket we are gonna make. It's gonna be a phenomenon.
Bum, bum, bum.
Yes, that's really fun.
We're going door to door, just asking for candy on any
other day. That would be panhandling.
You know what I mean? It's the last Halloween.
I love that song. It's really fun.
That's such a great Halloween song. Like, to write, you know.
And I love that. I think it was my pitch. Originally, that ended differently, and it was my pitch to have it be that they erased one day from the 29th of April of February, but only only had it 3/4 of the way off. So every 4 years, it'll, you know,
that is such a clever episode. I love it so much.
They stopped Halloween from being destroyed, but created Leap Day.
And that has one of my favorite interactions between them. Like, Cavendish is like asleep on the desk, and Dakota's just throwing paper balls at him, like, "Wake up!" He's like, "Hildegard, will you marry me? I'm just a lowly time traveler." And Dakota wakes him up, and he's like, "I wanted to see how it ended." And he's like, "I've heard this one before." She says no.
Yes, exactly. You've had this dream before.
Okay, somebody has been asking a lot, and they actually just put money in the chat to get this answered. How did you guys decide on developing the Amanda Milo romance for Milo Murphy's Law? Was that part of development, or was that something that just came across because you liked the characters?
Well, we liked the idea that there was a girl that was so into everything being ordered, sort of like for everything to be, somebody who was a little OCD to end up liking Milo, who is all about catastrophe, and like he's sort of the opposite of that.
Right.
So we like that. I love the scene where the episode with the school dance, where she realizes that he solved all of her problems in a really sweet way without even telling her, without,
oh, that's a sweet Milo song. The TLC, I'm not preparing, but maybe we could start. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's Chrissy Fit actually singing that in her own voice,
which is so cool. Like,
yeah, and I love that moment. I think that's really great. And then, everything that comes after that is sort of built on that, where she realizes he's a really great guy, but it's still sort of scary for her to be around him. It's we never went as far with it as I thought we were going to be able to, because we only had the 2 seasons. So
I always think it was interesting that, like, it was never the focus of her character. I feel like it was just kind of something, like, even in episodes where it was like just them, it was always something that was a part of it. It was never the full.
But even when she, we already know that she likes him, they still do Cake-Splosion together, and she's like,
this is a real song, not just a simple promotion. Cake-Splosion. Yeah, and they had that's a great episode too, because Ash did the boards. That one's really cute and
it's fun. Really adorable.
Yeah, somebody also about Melissa and Zach. Was that something from the beginning, or was that something that just came up in?
Melissa and Zach just sort of came, like, who knows how real that's going to be. It's just a sweet moment that she kisses him on the cheek, because I always felt like, if there was anybody I was shipping, it was the 2 of them. Like some people were shipping Milo and
Tofu's back.
Is he in here now?
Yeah, just for a little bit.
Yeah.
Could you take me to Evan's house now?
No.
When are you gonna be done?
When I'm done?
For like how many minutes?
Go away.
Can you give me a time frame?
I cannot.
Okay.
Okay. Bye.
Have a nice day. Sam.
See ya.
So you're saying you ship Melissa and Zach?
Yeah, I think that's the couple that I ship. So it was nice to have that little kiss on the cheek at the end.
Yeah,
Here,
and
this is Tofu. This is the cute dog.
Hi, Tofu!
Yes.
The one that looks almost exactly like Ashley Teasdale's
Oh yes, exactly.
dog.
Exactly. That was so weird. She was like, "Oh my god, I just got a new Maltipoo too," because she had one for a long time. It passed away. And I was like, "Oh really?" And she's like, "I have to send you this picture right now because she watched the video of the girls singing about it."
That's so cool that people are getting to connect like that on TikTok too, with everything else and all that.
Well, let's do a few more questions, and we'll end at like 4:30, and then I can go take her to.
That sounds like a plan. All right. So go ahead. I've actually almost finished all of mine. So go ahead and throw in the comments. We made it through all the questions, basically.
All right.
So that's
See,
good.
I told you I could answer them fast.
Yeah, no, we went good. Oh, this is another one. Was there ever thought to giving the Bug Trio a role in Milo Murphy's Law?
There was thought of it, but not really serious thought.
I miss them. They were underrated.
I miss them too. You know, they were in the original Phineas and Ferb pitch.
Yeah.
That was the thing that we cut out and then put back in later, just because they were like, I think there's too many things going on in the show. Would you consider cutting the bugs? And we're like, all right.
They can go. The fact that you got Josh Gad and J.K. Simmons and Stephen Root, like the voices are so good.
No, they're really good.
Somebody says, "Hi there, Dan. Who is Agent Xylophone from the Secrets of Alka comic strip?"
I don't know anything about the comic strips. I can't attest to their canon at all. Agent Xylophone, I have no idea.
Somebody says, "Why are none of the female members of the Murphy family affected by Murphy's Law? Was that something you decided in development, or?"
Yeah, well, yeah, that was just the way the way it works is that it's passed down patrilineally.
Right.
So that we didn't have to have Sarah, so we could give Milo a sibling who didn't suffer from the same thing.
Yeah.
Because it made more sense to have a sibling who has, it's like, oh, if something really weird is around your brother, but you still love him anyway, it's more lovable, it's more adorable than if you both are in the same boat. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Somebody says, "How did the Phineas and Ferb live tour come to fruition? And is there a professional recording of one of the shows?"
I wish there was one. That was such a bizarre, surreal experience, just seeing that happen. And it was going on. I mean, it ran for like 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
It went all through South America. I think it went to Europe and did really well. We like Tommy. I don't remember his name. Shoemaker, I think is his name. He's in charge of the theatrical stuff they do, like Beauty and the Beast Broadway and stuff like that. And he came over and we were like, "Hey, let's do something on Broadway." And they're like, no. But yeah. We do live shows for kids that, they did a Toy Story Live, and they did Disney on Ice, and they did all this sort of stuff. And would you be interested in that? We were like, yes, we would. And we wrote one song for it. We wrote the opening song, let's put on a show specifically for it. So it would have one song that's all its own. And then the rest is just enough of a script to tie all those songs together.
Yeah.
And the musical numbers, they got all these great dancers to perform all that stuff. And it was such a party. We really, really loved going to it, and kids absolutely ate it up. And we went to the one, and of course they knew me because we had met them all when they were putting the show together. And they came and got me and both girls to come up on stage with Doofenshmirtz at the beginning of the second act. Yeah. And Bartley, the guy who was playing Doofenshmirtz, said later he came down the road and he didn't know they were doing that. And he was like clapping five with people, and he was like, "Oh crap, that's Dan. I better do a good job." So it was fun. I was glad they did it. But it was Feld Entertainment that also did Ringling Brothers, Barnum and Bailey Circus.
Yeah.
And all the Disney on Ice stuff and everything. They do a great job with that stuff.
Somebody, and I think I forgot to touch on this, but the Alka Files, What was that ever planned as a series? What was kind of the story of why it was clearly meant to be a series and then it just became a special? Can you dish on that?
It's funny because Swampy pitched that when we were trying to come up with some other stuff, and I always felt like, how is that really going to work? Because Doofenshmirtz will be the only one talking on screen for a large portion of,
right.
It's like, if we were doing a feature where we could really make the characters really expressive and get a lot of subtle emotion out of the characters just through the animation, then that kind of thing can work. But on a TV budget, and I do feel like I think we did as good a job as we could with that. But everything that I felt like might go wrong with it, like when Disney picked that as the direction to go, I was sort of like, all right, let's see what we can do, and we dove in full force. But I feel like it's still,
the theme song's great.
The theme song's fantastic. I think there's a lot. We got to write a song that Kenny Loggins sang. There's a lot of great stuff.
They left me standing outside.
Yeah. I just think that Doof having to tell what everybody is thinking and saying because we didn't have the ability to really make that animation work,
right?
As well as I think would have been necessary to not have him say that stuff, makes it not work as well as I would want it to work.
As like a full series.
Yeah, it's not like the thing that I go, this is the thing I'm the most proud of. Go watch this. It's like, I think it works. I think it's funny. I think Paul Rubens knocks it out of the park in his parts, and I think there's a lot of fun in it. But I think it for the most part, it's not something that people are going to look at and go, hey, let's make a whole series of this. I don't think it's that show. So.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Somebody asks you to sing "We're Going to the Zoo." Was there ever a full extended version of?
We're going to the zoo. We're going to the zoo, and then we're gonna see some animals. There is. Let me check on my computer real quick and see if I can find the lyrics to the.
Oh yeah.
You know what I do have somewhere,
because it never got a full play out in any of the episodes. But yeah, if we could have the full lyrics.
Going to the zoo. Let's see. Would it be in GarageBand stuff, maybe? 1 second while I try to find where any of this would be.
Yeah.
Might be in music.
Exciting.
Is that in GarageBand? Is there a GarageBand thing? Because somebody keeps asking me on Twitter to sing that whole song. So let me just search zoo here, because I didn't always call it what it needed to be called. Documents. If I sort this by type, kind, there we are. Okay. Mail and messages, images. This is all Zoom stuff, PDF, Zoom, movies. I'm just assuming it's on this computer because
hopefully.
Well, it would be the only computer I have that it could be on. So.
We're going to the zoo.
We're going to. It was basically a list song where they would.
Yeah, because we only ever got the chorus. We never got any of the verses for it.
Let me find.
Any extended Milo songs? Like, because there's when they drop.
Well, this was really extended. There's like 2 whole verses to it.
Oh man.
And it's got this cool horn riff that I did. It's like, it was like a list of animals that we would see, you know, something and the caribou. We're going to the zoo. We're going to the zoo. It was
the other one that I can think of that we know had an extended that didn't ever get released was "I Can't Find You" from Missing Milo. It's like, I can't find you, where you gone? Is it some exotic trip you're on? Did I like lose you down the Amazon? Or are you just laying low? You're not here, you're not there. Look for you almost anywhere.
Version of that somewhere.
I ask around, but only get blank stares, and no one seems to know. Cause I can't find you. Well, they used that as the trailer when they did the Comic-Con.
Here's Recurring Raccoon.
Oh, is there an extended Recurring Raccoon?
No, but it's. Let me see if. Did it open just like that? Wow, it must be short. Let's see. Play. Nope, it will not open for some reason. So it may be that the version is so old.
We're going to the dentist. We're
oh,
going.
You know what? You know where I should look? Because I would have put it in my iTunes. I don't know why I didn't think to do that. Hold on. iTunes. If I search my library here, I'll be able to find it.
Was there ever an extended Taking a Stroll, or did that get to play out in the show?
Going to the Zoo, Poventunes.
Oh, here we go.
Let's see. I don't know if it'll play while Zoom is going. Can you hear that?
A little bit.
Can you guys hear that? Oh, this doesn't have the verses.
Oh, we got some sweet guitar riffs from Danny.
No, that's me.
Oh, that's you.
Nice. Going to the zoo. Wait, there are other versions here. If I'd known we were going to get asked this before, going to the zoo with verses, this must be it. Yeah, they all have this long intro. I should have memorized. We're going to the zoo. We're going to the zoo.
And here's an armadillo, kind of looks like you.
We're going to the zoo. We're going to the zoo.
A three-toed sloth and a green iguana. Who needs a flora. We got all kinds of fauna. We're going to the zoo. We're going to the zoo. And then we're gonna see some animals. So we're going to the zoo. We're going to the zoo. And then we're gonna see some animals. We're going to the zoo. We're going to the zoo. And then we're gonna see some animals. We're going to the zoo. We're going to the zoo. And then we're gonna see some animals.
This makes me so happy. You have no idea.
Like, the flightless birds will really separate the pros from the newbies. No, that's not a something. That's a blue-footed booby, which is a real name for a bird. So anyway, that's what I'll leave you with.
All right, that works. Alrighty, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in to the interview with Dan and for sending all the questions. We had an absolutely great time. Thank you, Dan, for coming on the show and just having a great time. And yeah, so I will see you guys next time. And I.